Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we've got another exciting week of NFL football to talk about. And Logan, I for one was very excited for the Sunday night football game between the Ravens and Bills. I said, in fact, that I was the MF sitting around waiting all day for Sunday night, as Miss Underwood so wisely says in her theme song. And then the Baltimore Ravens just took the Buffalo Bills, my Buffalo Bills, out to the woodshed, man. Just a complete bludgeoning, dominant win for Baltimore. We'll talk about all the games today, but we're going to start with the premier matchup that we just saw. What did you take away from that performance, Logan? Who did that say more about to you first? Was that more about Baltimore? Was that more about Buffalo?
I'll start with Baltimore. I mean, this is why I picked Baltimore to win the Super Bowl in the preseason. Like, I think that this combination that we see in the backfield, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is one of the greatest backfields in NFL history, point blank, period. Yeah. Like, you were looking at two bona fide MVP candidates, two, at their apex of their powers. Obviously, Henry isn't what he once was, but he's still a dominant player. He goes for 200 yards rushing in this game. First play of the game, he takes 87 yards, house call. Like, it's a Hall of Fame backfield. I think top 5 all time, and that might be conservative. Like, I was racking my brain coming up with guys who are even on a comparable level. Manning and Edgerrin James, Warner and Falk, Bradshaw and Harris. Like, I think Lamar and Derrick Henry are just on a different level. Like, Lamar is as close to a one-man offense as it gets by himself, what he can do on the ground, what he can do in the air. But now you combine these guys. It's the best skill position talent that Baltimore has ever had, and Lamar doesn't have to. It's such a luxury when he doesn't have to carry the offense, when Derrick Henry can take that kind of pressure off of him, not to mention what it does to stress a defense. It's like, pick your poison, man. Are you going to go after Lamar, or are you going to go after Derrick Henry? It really seems like it doesn't matter sometimes. You're going to get killed either way. This is the recipe I was waiting on, and now we've seen it for a few sustained weeks. They decimated Dallas, who I think is a really good football team. They decimate Buffalo, who I think is one of the best teams in football. Like, this was the team I expected out of the gates, and I'm so glad that Baltimore has gotten to their bread and butter, pounding the rock between the tackles with Derrick Henry, letting Lamar go to work. And I also thought you saw the best offensive line performance that we've seen out of Baltimore, and that's the most encouraging thing to me. You saw them dominate up front against Dallas, who I think has a really good front, and I think Buffalo has a really good front too, and they get a ton of push all game long. That's the biggest question mark. It's not about, obviously Lamar and his passing struggles in the playoffs. That's one thing. But, and again, maybe that's a big concern for you. But the biggest concern through the early stretch of this season has been the offensive line. And they have looked dominant these past 2 weeks. I thought it was really, really close coming into this week between Baltimore and Buffalo. I picked Baltimore coming into this game, whether who is the biggest threat to Kansas City in the AFC. I still think it's a toss-up, but I think I'm going to take Baltimore coming out of the AFC, man, if they can stay healthy. Like, they've solved a lot of my questions. I trust this defense. They seem like they're improving week to week. This offensive line is improving week to week. And like I said, man, when you've got this much talent in the backfield, I think it's the most talented backfield in NFL history, a Hall of Fame backfield with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. That's a really damn good offensive formula, man. I haven't been surprised at all from what we got out of Baltimore. I'm glad that we've actually seen it come to fruition, though, man. These last 2 weeks have been dominant wins for Baltimore.
Boy, that offense is incredibly hard to stop, man. And as you say, we've just seen them lock in these last couple weeks and just put their foot on the throat early of some good football teams, some very talented football teams. It really is just the dual threat of Lamar and Henry, specifically running the football at all times. And we saw this in various instances in the Cowboys game, right? Where Lamar is pulling the ball late and everybody's already committed to Derrick Henry, or even a receiver in motion on a jet sweep, right? They fake that, and that's how they end the game against Dallas. Or you're worried about the threat of Lamar, you hand the ball off to Derrick Henry, there's an opportunity for him to just run one dude over and he's got a hole up the middle, and like, you're just basically guaranteed a good outcome with one of those two paths if you're the Baltimore offense. And they've done such a phenomenal job of disguising who is getting the ball. I mean, the read option is effectively unstoppable between these two. And boy, Lamar is just an incredibly difficult problem to solve in and of himself, man. Like, there are multiple instances in this game where the Bills seem to think that they have him contained in the pocket, but there's no spy. And so he just darts up the seam, right? He's always able to make a play with his legs. He's the greatest rushing quarterback that we've ever seen in the history of this game. But this was a shockingly easy start to the game for Baltimore offensively. Like, no matter how highly you think of their offense, those first two drives, the first one was just the rumbling Derrick Henry 87-yard run, and then they marched down the field on the next drive. Like, those were two of the easiest drives that you could have. And I do think that that says a lot about Baltimore. It also says a lot about the current state of the Buffalo Bills. And I've been impressed by the Bills defense through the first 3 weeks because they're so shorthanded, because they're down their best defensive player, an all-pro level linebacker in Matt Milano. They're down another stud linebacker in Terrell Bernard, and they're down an extremely physical nickel corner in Taron Johnson, who's not just great in coverage, he's also really effective in the run game, down in the box, making plays. And nobody had been able to exploit that in the first 3 weeks. And Baltimore exploited that to the max. Man, I mean, they just committed to putting the ball on the ground over and over again and punishing a shorthanded Bills defense physically, a linebacking core that isn't up to snuff right now, and a team that you're going to see out there with extra DBs on the field a lot. Like, it was just complete bully ball. Nobody could tackle Derrick Henry. Justice Hill was killing them too, though. And that's just where there were multiple instances of inexcusable poor tackling from the Bills. 3rd and 14, you just allow them to convert a screen. 3rd and 7 late in this game, you're desperate to get off the field. You've done your job. Another little screen to Justice Hill kills them. So the run game, everything going to the running backs was devastating. But Lamar was also surgical. He was basically never pressured in this game. I mean, early in the second half, the Bills dialed up a couple blitzes and they actually made a couple plays. But throughout the first half, I think they were just too comfortable to sit in their soft zones, again, with a smaller group out there, a slighter group, and get bullied on the ground and allow Lamar to pick them apart because he had ample time to make throws. So I thought that it was outstanding for Baltimore's offense. I also thought their defense looked phenomenal. This Bills offense had just been going through everybody like tissue paper through the first 3 weeks. I thought that Baltimore really committed to rallying to the ball with all the dink and dunk stuff. Like, that's really how we've seen the Bills dissect teams in the first 3 weeks. Yes, there's been some special Josh playmaking, but it's been a lot of the screens, a lot of the flat routes. And Baltimore just pretty easily contained that stuff. And they were able to keep the Bills not necessarily behind the sticks, but from consistently moving the ball. And then the Bills had just some shockingly bad decision-making in terms of 4th downs, which I'll get to in a second. But the Ravens also brought some key timely blitzes on 3rd down, and nobody picked dudes up. Like, the Ravens just drugged the Bills in every way, but the contrast between Josh having to face 3 rushers multiple times in this game, literally just trying to stave dudes off with the stiff arm, it was brutal. And I thought the pass rush overpowered the Bills O-line. I thought their secondary was phenomenal, completely outclassed the Bills receivers, especially in the first half. Dudes just were not getting open. So it was a dominant performance. And I thought that they completely outcoached Buffalo on both sides of the ball. I loved the defensive play calling. I loved the points of emphasis. Again, some of the blitzes they dialed up. Offensively, I thought they committed to their strengths, but they still disguised things. Like, I thought Baltimore just executed everything at a really high level in this game. At the same time, for the Bills, Logan, I was absolutely disgusted by Sean McDermott in this football game. And look, the Bills were outclassed end to end, right? Maybe there's just not a lot of worlds in which they win this football game, but Sean McDermott effectively made it impossible with how conservative he was in the first half of this game. First series, you have a 4th and 2 at midfield, and you punt. If I have Josh Allen on my football team, I just am significantly, consistently opposed to that. He is an absolute weapon in short yardage situations. He's been the best 3rd down quarterback that we've seen. The Bills are always the number 1 3rd down offense. So you get a 4th and short, man. You put the ball in his hands. You play bully ball. You get him out in space. You do something. You don't just concede. But they did. But then you have an opportunity later where the complexion of the game is clearer now. Okay, you're down 14-3. It is clear that your defense is getting absolutely gashed by the Baltimore Ravens, that you do not have answers. This is going to be a shootout. If you're going to hang in this game, you have to be aggressive. And they have a 4th and 1 at their own 40. And they punt it. That to me was genuinely mind-blowing, Logan. It made me sick to my stomach as a Bills fan because I just don't understand the calculus there. They literally flashed this stat on the broadcast. Josh is 24 of 26 on 3rd and 4th and 1s with his legs since last year, Logan. 92% successful. And this is a spot where already your back is against the wall. You feel, okay, we just need to sustain a drive. And you have the best possible dude you could have in that situation. You don't give him an opportunity. It's just disgusting. And then the coup de grace of all this is later in the game when you have managed to put together some momentum. You're still down multiple scores, but 21-10, you scored on your last drive. You're moving the ball easily on this drive, and they just dial up a disastrous trick play. Legitimately one of the worst attempts at a trick play I've ever seen, in which they allow a free rusher. They barely even get the pitch off to Josh Allen. For anybody who didn't see, it was a direct snap to Curtis Samuel with Josh Allen lined up as a wide receiver. Barely even got the ball to Josh, but it was super wobbly, so it was a little slow, and so it just took things out of rhythm a little bit. Just took an extra split second. The play never had a chance, right? Josh gets stripped, and that's the game right there. I just can't possibly understand the thought process when you are having success. Just put the ball in the hands of your best player, regular style, man. I like trick plays, okay? We don't even know what was developing downfield. We literally never saw. We'll see with the all-22, but it didn't matter because the play never had a chance. So I just feel like the coaching really cost the Bills in this game. I thought that it was completely mismanaged end to end. Sean McDermott needs to understand who he has out there as his quarterback, and he needs to understand the probability that he is going to convert in these big situations. And in this game, he had to understand that his defense just was not going to get stops. So it's a really, really bad loss for the Bills. I'm not panicking. There's just a couple things that I'm actually concerned about from this game. Number one, Sean McDermott, for the reasons that we just laid out. He's consistently frustrated me in big games. Part of that is his defense. You have to be aggressive offensively as well, though. The bigger thing to me, though, is just what we saw from this defense in its current iteration. This defense has to get healthy. You have to be able to have your starting caliber linebackers out there, your stud linebackers out there. The offensive supporting cast didn't look good in this game. Like, again, the receivers weren't separating. The line got bullied, but I'm not too worried about that. I think this offense has looked great overall this year. Keon Coleman dropped a perfect throw at the end of the first half when the Bills desperately needed it. They desperately needed a score. That was brutal, but he kind of redeemed himself with a couple of big, nice plays later. He made a couple nice catches. Like, I think this offense is going to keep on humming, although this was a bad performance from them too. It's just the linebackers right now are a team that a team like Baltimore is just built to bully them when they're shorthanded. And then my last little thing that concerned me from the Bills, honestly, not that little. I just think Tyler Bass is bad. I mean, we've talked about this before. He's basically 75% on field goals since last season. That's horrible. He misses a 48-yarder. The game's over. It doesn't matter in this game, but it does matter long-term when you have zero faith in your kicker. We've talked about this, man. Kickers, a lot of it is vibes based. You just have a feeling when a guy goes up there, a level of confidence. My level of confidence in Tyler Bass is 0. So I don't know. It concerns me putting a game on his leg because we literally saw it last year. That's how the season ended for the Bills. He missed a very makeable 40-something yard field goal.
I mean, Tyler Bass looks like your little brother, man. I'm not confident when he steps up there. He also doesn't look confident himself when he steps up there. A couple of things. One, on the coaching point with Sean McDermott, I just think McDermott and this coaching staff, they lack good feel. And I can't really describe it, but it's just like they don't really have a firm grasp on what's going on during the game. They've kind of shown that. Like you said, you got smacked in the mouth on the first 2 Baltimore drives, and you don't feel the pressure. It's like that scene in Star Wars, man. I've never actually seen one start to finish, but I remember in the first movie, when they're in that like box and it's like getting closed in, you got Chewbacca and Luke in them, and the box is closing in. You got to feel that pressure.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, and Leia says, I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, I had a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about it, I guess. They didn't feel the urgency.
I guess Sean McDermott didn't, man. Like, you're exactly right. Like, in those situations, you can't afford to, not sustain the drive. You can't afford to not put points on the board. When you're playing a great team like Baltimore that is coming out the gates humming like that, It's a feel thing. You just have to feel we need this drive. And like you said, man, you've got the best third down and fourth down converter on your team. Yeah. The bigger issue to me is later in this game when they run that trick play. It's just nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. Josh and this offense have been having success the past 2 drives. That drive and the one move. The old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are we trying to do something different, man? The scheme is working. And it just reminded me of the Damar Hamlin direct snap on 4th down from the playoff game last year where I talked about throttling Tim Connolly on last show. I want to throttle Sean McDermott. What are we doing, man? He just seems clueless. One final thing on Baltimore before we move on, unless you've got anything else. I think Baltimore's more talented than Buffalo. I'm probably going to bump them up in my power rankings above Buffalo. I'm not dropping Buffalo drastically. Buffalo is still a real deal contender. Josh Allen is still the MFing man. Like, if you have any different takes other than that coming out of this game, I just staunchly disagree. But I do think this speaks to how exceptionally talented Baltimore is on both sides of the football. The pressure was immense. Matabike, Adafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy getting in the backfield all game long. They've got talent at all 3 levels. The secondary's great. I know they haven't looked, great out of the gates, but they're still exceptionally talented. Roquan Smith is one of the best linebackers in football. Kyle Hamilton's up there for one of the best safeties. And that is what I think it speaks to. You talk about this Buffalo Bills defense not being at full strength. I want to wait until I make big declarations about Buffalo's defense until we see them at full strength, because Baltimore is, and they're damn good, and they're well coached, and they've got talent everywhere on this defense. And the last thing I'll say about Baltimore too, this game script really favors Baltimore, and you can beat a lot of really great football teams when you get out the gates like this. And that is the danger of playing Baltimore. I referenced that scene from Star Wars when the walls in the room are closing in on them. That's how it can feel when you're playing them sometimes. It's like an anaconda wrapping it around you, and they are going to strangle you to death. They are going to get up early, and when they can do that, it just plays right into their hand. When Lamar isn't forced to make throws, that means you're dealing with a deficit. You're dealing with a running clock, and 2 of the best runners at their respective positions in NFL history. It's just a recipe that really works well for Baltimore. So I do think this speaks more about Baltimore. I think Buffalo got down early, didn't feel the urgency of this game, didn't know that we got to get back in, but this is a problem. But it doesn't say to me that Buffalo's not a real contender or anything like that. I think it speaks that Baltimore's one of the best teams in the AFC. So is Buffalo. I still feel that way. But when we do power rankings in a couple of weeks, I do think I'm going to make an adjustment, and I'll probably have Baltimore up a spot or 2 and Buffalo down a spot or 2.
I think these are clearly 2 of the top 3 teams in the AFC, which is what I thought was pretty clear preseason. I think it's Kansas City, I think it's Baltimore, and I think it's Buffalo. I do think it's important to emphasize how injured this Bills defense is, because I think a lot of people aren't locked into that stuff, and they see a performance like this. Like, again, you're down 3 or 5 best defensive players. That's massive. And the Bills offense has looked phenomenal. And although the receivers weren't separating early, I still like what we saw from Khalil Shakir in the second half. I like what we saw from Keon Coleman in the second half. Dalton Kincaid, these are reliable targets. I think if you've been waiting to press the button on, oh my God, they missed Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, who Chris Collinsworth tried to lump in there with Diggs, wonder if they're missing these guys now. No, nobody misses Gabe Davis. He sucks at football. I still think that this receiving core is deep. I think it's complete. And Josh is playing the best football that he has. And in this game, look, he just didn't have a chance, man. Again, I'm infuriated with McDermott. When you are looking at a 4th and 1, that should not be the end of the drive. It just shouldn't. When you have Josh Allen on your football team, you extend the drive. It's such a high probability conversion. And in a game like this, when Baltimore is just strangling you offensively, eating up clock and dominating and putting more and more pressure on you to score, you have to understand that. You have to take the chance. It's not even that big of a risk if you just look at how successful they've been in those situations. And so that's why it just feels like this was a game that was sort of destined to be a disaster because of how things spiraled defensively and with the decision-making from the coaching staff. But I still think this is the best run game the Bills have had. James Cook's the best running back. I think if you're freaking out, if you're out on the Bills, you're overreacting. They've looked really impressive through 3 weeks. This was a big comeback to earth performance. But it said a lot about Baltimore, and I got to give props to them, man. I was worried about the line after they dipped to 0-2, and I think it's been really impressive in the last 2 games. I did view them as a more talented team to Buffalo coming into the year, and that's why I slightly preferred them. I just thought they're a more stacked football team, but I was worried about that line, and they went down 0-2, and they had 2 really hard games after that on paper, and they basically just dominated both of them. So if you're Baltimore, I think that you have to feel pretty damn good right now. You've really, really responded to some early season adversity in a very impressive way. But Logan, we talk about the top teams in the AFC, and we mentioned my top 3 at least, Baltimore, Buffalo, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are still sitting at 4-0 today. They win a bit of an ugly one against the Chargers, 17-10. What did you take away from this for Kansas City?
Man, that might be the phrase for Kansas City his last 2 seasons. Win ugly. Let's put it on a T-shirt or something, man. The Kansas City Chiefs defense is, again, going to be one of the best in the NFL. In 4 of these weeks, they've held 3 of their opponents to 20 or fewer points. They held Baltimore to 20, Atlanta to 17. They held the Chargers to 10 in this one. They're number 5 in opponent rushing yards per carry. They're number 7 in pressure rate. And the hallmark of this defense, being great when they need to. This was a top 10 unit, third down and red zone defense last season. Carson, I found some crazy historical stats that I think really put into context what an anomaly of a start to this season it is for Kansas City, though. They flashed this one up on the broadcast. Coming into this week, they were the first team since the 2008 Cowboys to start 3-0 with a -2 or worse turnover margin. Interestingly enough, they lose the turnover margin 2-0 again today. Carson, they are the third team, just the third team in NFL history to start 4-0 with a -4 or worse turnover margin.
Wow.
They're the first team since the 1993 Eagles and the only other team to do that, the 1991 Bills. It's really strange the way that they're winning these football games, and especially when the Chiefs have allowed an opening drive score in every game this season, and then after that, just clamp the vice up. But I still think this is a really good formula. The defense plays great, and the offense does enough. And it is uncharacteristic. It looks different from the explosive Chiefs offense that we're accustomed to. And I don't think we're going to see the Chiefs win sexy. I don't think that's something that the Chiefs are going to do. I think they're going to win ugly. But when the chips were down, when they needed it, the Chiefs and Mahomes in this running game marched down the field for the game-winning touchdown. Like, it's how they won the Super Bowl last year. The defense is so talented and well coached, and they just have to not shoot themselves in the foot every week. Again, what is so remarkable about this 4-0 start is they have shot themselves in the foot every week, and it hasn't mattered. I do think, though, that being said, even though that is true, the Chiefs are still number 1 in my power rankings. They're still my number 1 team in the AFC. This is the most vulnerable of the Chiefs that have ever been during this run of dominance. Like, the margins close even more after this game between the Chiefs and their AFC frontrunners, the Ravens and the Bills, because of the Rashee Rice injury. If you didn't see it, a devastating injury, especially the way it happened. Patrick Mahomes throws an ugly interception over the head of Travis Kelce. It's intercepted by Christian Fulton. As Fulton is returning this ball, it's punched loose by Rashee Rice. Mahomes doesn't see Rice punch the ball out. Mahomes dives into Rice's right knee, and he's got a right leg injury. Andy Reid said it does not look good. Everyone is rumoring it to be a torn ACL. This is a group that was really, really thin last year. Rice was the best of the bunch. They're already really thin this year. Hollywood Brown is out for the season, likely too, if Rashee Rice is. We already know about Isaiah Pacheco. He's got a fractured right fibula. He already had surgery. And that's concerning because that means that Kareem Hunt and Xavier Worthy are going to need to step up in Pacheco and Rice's absence. Luckily, Travis Kelce seemed to turn a corner today. He had 7 catches for 89 yards. But again, this is just a skill position group that was already thin, that is now thinning out even more. And it's an issue when you look at what the Chiefs were great at last year, because I talk about they're winning defensively, they're doing just enough offensively, they're not killing themselves. The thing that this team was great at was also being great when they needed to offensively. This was the number 1 third down team in 2023. Through 4 weeks this season, Carson, they are the 21 team in third down conversions. They converted 48% last year. They're converting just 35% this year.
I think the Bills were the number 1 third down offense.
They flashed that stat up on the broadcast. It didn't seem right to me either, but I did mark it down.
Bills were 50%. They were number 1, but excellent. The Chiefs were excellent on third down.
Great. They were good when they needed to be. you just raised some red flags about this team because of everything that's being stacked up against them. The skill position talent's going out. Patrick Mahomes is playing like the ugliest and worst football I've ever seen to start a season from him. They're relying more on the running game than ever. It's still a good formula. And again, I need to see the Chiefs lose before I move them out of that number one spot. But as we've said, I do think the Chiefs are vulnerable in a way that they haven't been over the past few years, man. I think the margins are closer than they've been the past few years. They were really close last year, and it almost cost them. I think this is the most vulnerable they've ever been.
It definitely is, dude. And I'm just going to come out and say it. If Rashee Rice is out for the year, the Chiefs aren't winning the Super Bowl, dude. Like, I'm sorry. You can only take the lack of skill position talent so far. If Rashee Rice is not out there, this group is not comparable to what they had last year because they still had two high-end weapons, not even necessarily elite weapons, and everybody around them sucked, and we can agree on all that. But like the downgrade from Rashee Rice to Xavier Worthy trying to replicate the production of a wide receiver one, it's not close, dude. The route running, the consistency down to down. Worthy is explosive, makes a huge play in this game. You are not leaning on him. He is not the level of consistent producer that Rashee Rice is. Again, not even close. The receiving room without Rashee is the worst in football. Kelsey is still.
I don't know about that. I don't know about the Patriots do exist. The Patriots do exist.
All right, if we were looking purely at wide receivers, though,
just
still
wideouts?
Maybe, I don't know. It's pretty close.
I mean, I'm going to straight up disagree with you, bro. I think if there's any team that could I think the Chiefs can still win the Super Bowl. Like, okay, I get what you're saying because it is ugly on tape. Like, nobody is winning consistently one-on-one outside of Kelsey and outside of Rice, but they're so well coached. Like, if there's any team that could withstand it, I like Matt Nagy. I like Andy Reid. They're two really creative offensive minds. Like, I still think they can run the ball a little bit with Kareem Hunt in this group. They've still got Kelsey. Like, I'm not ready to go that far just yet with Kansas City. Like, I think it closes the margins to the point where I'll keep it a buck. I would pick Baltimore to beat Kansas City. I believe in Baltimore. I picked that preseason. I would still stick with that, especially with Rice's injury, but I wouldn't count them out. I definitely think Kansas City could still win the Super Bowl down Rashee Rice. This defense and this Patrick Mahomes are good enough to get it done. I just disagree with that, I think.
Boy, that would be incredible, man, because they honestly aren't running the ball well this year. I mean, they're committing to the run game. They're trying to run the ball. It's not pretty. It hasn't been particularly efficient, and it's just taken away some of the dynamism of this offense that obviously was sapped last year, right? This just hasn't been a dynamic offense, and they won the Super Bowl all the same, but Rashee was awesome last year. Man, if Travis Kelce is your only legitimate receiving target on the football team, and like, I don't want to diminish Worthy, but again, we just know like it's very, very boomer bust with him right now.
Carson, they got Juju Smith-Schuster, man. They gonna be all right, bro. They gonna be all right.
They would need a Juju resurgence. I don't know, man. I think that is hugely, hugely concerning for the Chiefs. Everybody's flawed, but again, it would be a complete level up in terms of the degree of difficulty from what we saw last year, which was already wildly impressive. I believe in the Chiefs, man. After last year, I think you just have to give them the utmost respect, but golly, that group sucks outside of Travis Kelce if Rashee Rice isn't out there. It's just such a grind for them offensively. And Pat just hasn't been good. I'm not worried about that. He's Patrick Mahomes, but he's been bad, bro. He's thrown 5 picks. He's in the Anthony Richardson, Will Levis club. In that regard, he's averaging by far a career low in yards per game. He's averaging just 7.5 yards per attempt. Like, he's made some awful decisions, and he just has not been as composed as we're used to. So maybe that's making the offense look worse than it will with Mahomes playing at his normal level up to his potential, which I want to be clear. I think Patrick Mahomes will play much better than he is right now, but it's just ugly, man. I do want to give props to the defense because it is just phenomenal, and that's clearly their strength. I mean, that was obviously their strength last year. It's obviously their strength this year. It has been so fascinating watching the Chiefs transition from the most dynamic offense we've seen, arguably, like in 2018, and for the years with Tyreek, to now being so much about defense first. We're going to run the football a lot. We don't have high-end receiving talent. Last year, they had nobody who could take the top off of the defense. But that defense is stellar, man. Spags is great. He's a genius. Brought timely blitzes in this one. Chris Jones is a monster, and they shut down the run, dude. The last 3 weeks, they're allowing 70 rushing yards per game and under 3 yards per attempt on the ground. This is a Chargers team that's run the football very well. They were incapable of doing so in this game. Even without Snead, who obviously is the loss of the offseason, the defense looks amazing. And they carried this game. You fumble early. You throw a pick to give them a short field. You dig a 10-0 hole and you just say, defense, will you keep them from scoring again all game, which is literally what the Chiefs needed. And they did it. They are winning you games. They are an exceedingly difficult matchup for anybody in football. So yeah, I still think the Chiefs have a formula to beat a lot of teams. It's just, man, I don't know. If you are going up against the full strength Ravens, if you're going up against the full strength Bills with that healthy defense, those teams just have so much more firepower. It's tough for me to see with Kansas City, and God bless them. They're 4-0. I mean, they have found a way so far this year, but I think Rashee Rice would be a huge loss.
Any given Sunday, Carson, you know how it goes, man. I mean, somebody on the other team has a bad game. Chiefs do enough. Again, it is a testament to this defense. They are only the third team in NFL history to have this bad a turnover margin and to be undefeated. Yeah. Only 2 teams have ever done it. It is a testament to this defense.
The other remarkable stat, just real quick, that they shared on the broadcast, the Chiefs are on a 9-game win streak right now, which is incredible. And their total point differential is 54. It's the lowest point differential ever in a 9-game win streak. They're just grinding these games out, man, week after week.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to mention, you talk about Pat's struggles. I think the reason that we've seen Pat struggle so much last year into this year, it is a part of the receiving group. You will see Pat bring down balls as he is going through his progressions and through the pocket because guys aren't winning one-on-one. Like I said, man, I think they're more vulnerable than they ever have been before, and I would take Baltimore head-to-head to beat them, but I just flat out disagree, man. I could never count out the Chiefs in a single game elimination format, man, in a playoff run. I could never count them out. I think the Chiefs can do the impossible. They have been. Look at all the numbers we're giving at you. It doesn't.
This would be the impossible, Logan.
It doesn't make sense.
Impossible. This Justin Watson, Sky Moore show, man. Ugh. Juju.
Ugh.
Golly. Let's look at the other side of this. For the Chargers, what do you take away here?
I mean, I think they need to lean on Herbert a little more. I thought when they were getting stuffed so much by the run up the middle, they should have leaned on him a little more. I thought him and Ladd McConkey, White AB, I thought they had some good stuff cooking today.
That touchdown was unbelievable throw and catch.
It was, man. The fact that that defender was draped on him so much and he still, the concentration to find that ball on the backside of him, his route running is so good. I love that kid, man. I think he's going to be a stud in the league. I think Herbert has a good number 1 receiver on a really cheap contract. But yeah, I thought they should have got away from the run a little bit more. Like, it's a good formula. And I think the Chiefs have shown you something. Even when you have an elite star quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes, the best way to win games in the National Football League is to play great defense and to run the hell out of the football. And that's the way they had done it with Herbert, right? The first 2 weeks, they were undefeated, 2-0. And Herbert threw for less than 150 yards. He's at like 145 passing yards per game right now. Obviously, it's a little skewed because he got knocked out of the Steelers game, but he gets limited in this one too. It's a good formula, and it works. I think that's a reason. Caleb Williams won today, right? There's a lot of guys that it's a good formula. It's a good recipe for any quarterback at the helm. Bo Nix wins a freaking game throwing for 60 yards today. But there comes a point when you have a stud like that, you just need to cut Justin Herbert loose and let him make some plays. And I know there's some other conflicting factors. The Chargers are down offensive lineman Joe Alt in this game, right? So maybe they don't feel as comfortable. But I think the Chargers are a good football team, man. I think I underrated them. I think this formula, winning defensively, running the hell out of the football, the Chiefs have had the second best running defense in the NFL this season next to Baltimore. So I think against the majority of this league that LA is going to be able to establish the run, that they're going to be able to stop. I mean, they held the Chiefs to 17 points. And honestly, I think that last drive when the Chiefs score, they were just worn down. I think that defense just got tired from having to be on the field so long. So I still view the Chargers as if Herbert can stay healthy, if this offensive line can stay healthy, if Diane Henley is okay, because I think he's a really big component of this defense too. I think the Chargers are going to make a wild card push, man. I think they're a really good football team. And Yeah, I just think they need to rely on Herbert a little bit more, man. I thought Harbaugh should have gotten away off the run. I know that's their
Agreed.
bread and butter, but got to let Herbert cook, man. You got a top 5 quarterback, a top 6 quarterback, on your team. And that kind of game, I think you got to let him do his thing a little bit more. But I've been impressed. I've been very, very impressed with the Chargers. Out of the teams that have made the biggest difference, in my opinion, of them from week 1 to week 4, the Chargers are definitely up there for me in terms of they've really changed my mind. I think they're a really good football team.
I like the Chargers. They just need to be more aggressive. And this is a predictable downfall of a Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense that you are just going to run the ball until the wheels fall off. But man, went too far in this one, dude.
That's a great
They did
point,
not
man.
score the ball in the 4 times that they touched the ball in the second half. And like, you got to give props, right, to what the run game did in the first couple weeks. It's something that Justin Herbert has never had. He's never had an effective run game, and the run game was carrying early on here. But like, if you look at the second half, every single time they had the ball, the series that stalled out would start with a run that went nowhere and put them behind the sticks. They ran the ball 24 times for 55 yards. At some point, you just got to put the ball in your quarterback's hands sooner, because now you're setting him up, right? Now you're working from a deficit. You're looking at 3rd and longs. Spags is going to dial up the heat. It's just a really, really difficult situation to work your way out of. The receivers aren't good. I like Ladd. Josh Palmer's very meh. Quentin Johnson, certainly not my favorite. I do think Herbert has to be a little bit better, but he was in a tough spot. The good news for the Chargers is your defense looked pretty good again. I do like them. I do think they definitely have playoff potential, but until they can open up this offense more, and until we see more from this receiving core, and until we see some more aggressive play calling in the passing game, I think we know what their ceiling is. They're another team that is very much just kind of trying to grind out games right now, but obviously they're not as good at it as the Chiefs, because the Chiefs defense is insane. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, and they're coached by Andy Reid. Let's look at another marquee matchup on paper for this week, Logan. Packers-Vikings. The Vikings, of course, my God, have been the story of the season so far, but Green Bay was getting Jordan Love back in this one. Minnesota didn't care. They were dominating this game. It ends up being just a 2-point differential, but really, really dominated the first half. How sold are you on the Vikings? I mean, what did you take away from another really impressive performance?
Yeah, I'm going to bump the Vikes up in my power rankings too. I had them at 9. I'll move them up probably a couple spots. I think they're going to jump the Jets for me, and I'll talk about that. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that later. I was really disappointed with New York in this game.
You're still a little slow moving on the Vikes, though. Are you not putting them as a top 5 team?
They're maybe 6 or 7.
Minnesota.
There may be 6 or 7. I mean,
Minnesota.
I do think you see a couple of flaws. I thought you saw, Darnold still is a little bit turnover prone. He's got 2 second-half turnovers. I'm not waiting for the bottom to fall out, because if I'm being honest, I think Sam Darnold's a league average quarterback right now. And I don't mean that in like a disrespectful way, because I do think he's an MVP candidate with his numbers and the way he's playing. He's got 2 TDs in 4 straight games. He had 3 TDs in the first half. Again, anytime we're talking about MVP, it's very early. This thing's going to change. But I have Darnold firmly in my Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield tier of quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably – I don't know, man. Him and Goff's a real convo, actually. I'd have Baker over him.
Very similar.
I'd have Brock Purdy over him. There's guys that I would take over him. But Darnold's a good quarterback, and I've been very impressed with him. I mean – 932 yards, 11 TDs, 3 picks, 68 completion percentage, and a passer rating of 118.9 through 4 weeks. He was the variable for me with this team.
Yeah.
And I've been so impressed. Like the skill talent that he has here, he's making the most of it. Jefferson, he's got back-to-back big-time throws on the first drive, a 29-yarder to Jalen Naylor, who looks like another stud here in Minnesota. He's got a beautiful 31-yard TD to Jordan Addison. Addison hits the corner with a nasty stutter step. And so, yeah, and he's using Aaron Jones or running the ball well, but it's just impressed me that all of the Vikings, their long, methodical drives, and they're finishing in the red zone. You can't ask more from a quarterback. Like, they're just not leaving any meat on the bone. And I was a little bit disappointed again with the second half. But the Vikings defense too, man. blitzing, getting home, forcing turnovers, giving their team short fields. Yeah, I think Minnesota's probably 6 or 7 for me right now. They're going to leapfrog Houston. They're going to leapfrog New York for me. I probably should have had those teams below them when we did our power rankings last week, but I wanted to see them put their foot on the Packers' throat, and it did scare me a little bit how quick we saw. And dude, Packers were down 28-0 in the first half, and then we get a muff punt. We get some turnovers that lead to some points. I mean, they almost steal this game. I'll talk about Green Bay side in a little bit, but are you moved? Like, do you view the Vikings as a NFC front runner, a Super Bowl contender?
I've been moved, bro. I had them number 5 in my power rankings this past week, and some people still felt like that was too low, but I did want to see a bit of a larger sample size of Darnold playing at this level, the defense playing at this level, right? It's just 3 games still needs to be contextualized. The Lions and Niners, I felt, were bringing back very replicable formulas as elite football teams, and I'm not sure that I would move the Vikings above either of those teams right now. I just think they're in that tier. I think that those 3 are pretty clearly above everybody else in the NFC right now. The Vikings are checking a whole lot of boxes, man. I mean, I think that they have a great football coach and a great offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell. They run the football at an extremely high level. They protect well at full strength. You have Jordan Addison back. You're going to get TJ Hawkinson back. It's damn near an elite receiving core. And Justin Jefferson is an actual superhuman, bro. He does something every week that makes me question how he's even a real human being. And your defense has been awesome. We've talked about the additions with Cashman and Van Ginkel and bringing in Grenard. Like, Brian Flores is also just a dog, man. And they end up allowing a lot of points in the second half in this one. I get that this ended up being a real competitive football game, but they're kind of fake just because I felt like they went away from their identity. Like, they stopped dialing up the pressure. This team has blitzed more than anybody else. They've brought more pressure. Second half, they start going into some more of those soft zones, like quasi-prevent defenses, the stuff that you should never go to at halftime, in my opinion, because like the whole design is, okay, we're not going to let up a chunk play. Yeah, but any decent offense can methodically work their way down the field. And if you're in like the last 8 minutes, okay, that makes sense. But, you know, by God, stick to what works. I mean, if they do connect on a big play, okay, that's all right. Taking chances, being aggressive has been good for you. There's still a full half of football left. That's kind of besides the point, though. I do think this defense is really good, and I thought they were phenomenal in the first half. We do have a couple Darnold Bozo moments in this game, but I'm with you. I think he's in that Goff tier. I think there isn't an elite quarterback on an elite team in the NFC. So it's not the red flag that like Darnold isn't an elite football player, that it might be in a different context. He's got the arm. He's been moving well this year, and he's going through his progressions, dude. Like, overall, he's played pretty damn clean football. There was the touchdown he threw to Josh Oliver, I think, where you can just watch his eyes, and he ended up on his 3rd read there, but like, he's not seeing ghosts, man. He's staying composed. He's doing his job. So there's not a red flag for me. They have all the pieces in place. They just keep on impressing me. If they're your favorite in the NFC, I don't mind that. I don't want to overreact to 4 games, but it's like, dude, I mean, these are 3 straight games against damn good football teams. And they beat the Niners. And they could have won that game more convincingly than the scoreboard. And they destroyed the Texans. And they were up 28-0 in this game. The Vikings and the Bills had been the 2 most dominant teams through 3 weeks. Bills got destroyed this week. Vikings did their thing again. I think they've got to be in that top tier in the NFC.
I mean, the 3 teams that they've beat were all people's picks to win the Super Bowl across the sports media landscape. I saw people take the Texans to win the Super Bowl. I saw people take the Niners to win the Super Bowl. I saw people take the Packers to win the Super Bowl. So they are statement wins. I do think they're closer to Green Bay than San Francisco or Detroit. Green Bay is a good football
defense
team.
isn't a different, but the defense is on a different level for Minnesota. I'm still worried about that Packers defense. Minnesota's defense has showed out against everybody.
Yeah, and Green Bay's been very good at making opportune turnovers, but they're the third team.
When they've played good offenses, Green Bay's gotten gashed. Philly gashed them. Minnesota gashed them.
The third,
they beat them on 2 shitty offenses.
They're still the 3rd team for me. I like Detroit more in the trenches. I trust Brock Purdy more in their skill position talent, but I could see the Vikings coming out, and that's kind of the thing. I will say
the Niners are still number 1 for me in the NFC. They're just too talented.
Yeah, I think Detroit's my number one, and then I'd have,
Okay.
but they're really, really close. Green Bay almost steals this game. I mean,
Yeah.
again, they trailed 28-0 in the first half. They muffed the punt. Green Bay turns that into points before the end of the half. Darnold, the sack fumble, leads to a Tucker Kraft TD. And I just think back to some Packers self-inflicted wounds that come back to bite them. Narvison, their rookie kicker, misses 2 kicks in the first half, a 37-yarder and a 49-yarder. Like, the Packers have back-to-back bad turnovers in the fourth quarter. Love just throws a bomb to the end zone where I was thinking, what do we do? There's time on the clock. You're down 9. Like, march the ball down the field. Why are you taking that shot? I thought that was an unnecessary risk. Defense clamps up. They get the ball immediately back. And then Tucker Kraft fumbles on the following drive. And then, Love throws another 2 interceptions in this game. So I do think Green Bay and Minnesota are very, very close. But Minnesota is in that real deal contender range. And Green Bay, to me, still has things they need to prove before I'm ready to bump them up. I've got 3 teams in my top tier, I guess, for both conferences. For the AFC, it's Baltimore, it's Kansas City, and it's Buffalo. And in the NFC, it's Detroit and San Francisco, and it's Minnesota. But I do think the Packers are very good. But you're not going to win a game when you shoot yourself in the foot that many times. I know the Vikings gave a lot of them back, but they just too many self-inflicted wounds for Green Bay. And I do need to see something from the Packers defense. Not that I doubt that they're a big play defense. I know they can force turnovers. I need to see them situationally lock up on third down. I need to see them in the red zone lock up. We haven't seen that yet.
I'm with you. That's the reason I see a separation between these two teams. I'm just not sold on the Packers defense. Offered really no resistance in this game. It's a weird game for Jordan Love because he does help them claw back into this one. He also, I thought, was forcing some balls early and airmailed his second pick. And then you mentioned, just threw the game away. There's no reason to do that. It's reminiscent of the throw that ended their year, where it's like you have time. Why are you throwing across your body into triple coverage? Last year, we're talking about here, the blitz is coming. Like, I guess he saw one-on-one he liked, but man, he was about 10 yards off from that being a connection. It's just not a chance that you need to take at that moment. I think that we need to see a larger sample size of Jordan Love playing at an elite level than what we just saw last year to really, really fully know what the Packers are. But I do believe in him. I think that he's like a top 10 sort of quarterback. It just hasn't been the cleanest first 2 games from him this year, but it was good to see him out there. I think this offense is really good. They run the ball. I like the receiver room. I think LaFleur is great. And I really like Jordan Love. It's just the defense. But yeah, dude, they might need to cut and replace Narvison. I don't know. I don't want to be overly reactionary, but he's 3 of 6 from 40 plus this year, man.
It's like you said, man. Everybody in the NFL today has a great kicker, and there are so many dudes that specialize in kicking balls. That is all they do. All they do all day long is kick a ball. Like, I don't mean to degrade kickers, but at this point, it's it's not 2000 anymore when you have John Carney and Alindo Murray missing 19-yard extra points. That doesn't happen anymore. I said this last NFL show. There's a reason a couple of years back that they moved the extra points back, to make it more difficult because nobody was missing those kicks anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like every team has a guy. There are so many good kickers. Chris Boswell, Kaimi Fairbairn, Brandon Aubrey, Younghoe Koo. If you don't have a kicker that is at least money from 50 yards and in, you're at a loss. It's like that's – and that is something that can come back to bite you on the ass in a crucial moment. Buffalo, their biggest red flag is still their kicker. In Green Bay, it's not their biggest red flag, but and it sucks, Carson, too, because I know that it's way tougher for young kickers. Just look at the track record with rookie kickers back to 2005. You look at Mike Nugent. You look back at when Roberto Aguayo got drafted really early. It's not uncharacteristic for young kickers to struggle, but that's just a position where you can't have a guy that's not ready, man. There's too many guys that are kicking in the UFL and the CFL. There's way too many guys playing soccer.
Saying, dude.
You got to find a guy who is money.
Amen.
There's got to be somebody better, right?
Dude, that's literally what I thought. When I watched Tyler Bass kick that field goal, and by the way, I expected him to miss both of the field goals that he took today. He made one, but that's where I'm at with Tyler Bass. I just thought to myself, surely there's some Scottish guy out here, right? Surely we could send some scout and he could find Angus and Angus could come and kick the ball better than Tyler Bass. There's a million Zendayhoses. Okay, one of those guys has to be available. Let's bring him in. They'll be better than Tyler Bass. I'm with you, dude. The position is stacked, and when you aren't confident in your guy, you're at an active competitive disadvantage. The Eagles should trade Jake Elliott. Lord knows they're not going to use him. Sirianni's going to go for it every time. Somebody else could actually use a good NFL kicker. I just feel bad for the Packers because last year was Anders Carlson, and now Narveson looks worse.
I bet you could get some good value for Jake Elliott too, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe nothing crazy like a fifth, a fourth round pick. I bet somebody would give that up for a nails kicker.
Yeah, maybe a fifth. I don't know, but that's frustrating if you're the Packers. Last thing I want to say is just Justin Jefferson made another unreal game in this play, another unreal play in this game. It's the second time this year, Logan, that we have seen him score a touchdown in which he is smothered. He has one arm taken out of the play, so he uses his chest as a backboard and corrals it with the other hand. Like, I just can't believe this dude. His coordination, his focus, his hands, his IQ, his ability to trick people with his eyes. The DB's looking for the ball to come from the wrong angle because that's where Jettis is looking, and he still makes the catch. I don't understand it. The guy is an absolute freak. He's one of the best players we've ever seen play the position, and God bless him. He's unbelievable, and so are the Minnesota Vikings, man. I think that they are stamped as a real deal contender. Let's talk about your Steelers, Logan. They came in today 3-0. Unfortunately, they fell to the Colts. It was a close one, though. What did you take away from this for Pittsburgh? Let's start with them.
Yeah, this is the kind of game and game script I was waiting for the Steelers to play in, facing adversity and a deficit. You know, they go down 17-0 in this game, and year after year, the past 4 years post Big Ben, the Steelers folded every single one of these games. The Texans last year, smacked in the mouth, got nothing. The Niners last year smacked us in the mouth, got nothing. They normally fold like a lazy boy in these games. They didn't today. It was a prove-it game from the offense. It was a prove-it game for Justin Fields. Are you a game manager or are you a game changer? I think Justin Fields is a game changer. And it was why the Steelers couldn't be a top 10 team for me yet, and I got some flack for that from Steelers fans. You got to put the ball in the end zone, point blank, period. Until I see that happen, I can't put you in my top 10. They still don't pass the test, but I'm really encouraged by this loss. I really like how the offense moved the ball in this game. They had 2 good drives at the end of the first half. They had 3 TD drives in the second half, and I really liked how Justin Fields looked. He gives you 367 total yards. He was our leading passer and our leading rusher. He had 3 total touchdowns, 2 of them red zone rushing TDs. It's the play extension, him making big-time throws to George Pickens. The reality is the Steelers just didn't play Pittsburgh Steelers football today. Too many self-inflicted wounds kill them. 2 turnovers. George Pickens gives away points. I always get on Lamar. I call him loaf bread Lamar. Pickens is holding the ball like a loaf of bread. Come on, man. Like, yeah, he's got to be smarter than that. Fields' fumble gave away some points. I didn't think that was a fumble. I'm going to be honest. I thought that was a bad call. I know Fields drops the ball, but I thought he had recovered possession by the time the defense had touched him. That's a moot point.
So you're saying, what are you saying, that he should have just been down?
He drops the ball, but he picks it up as the defender, and he pins it to his body when the defender touches him. And then his knee,
he's not down at that point. He's up.
He is. His elbow is on the ground. And they told him, they said that he was still up. I thought that was a bad call. Tomlin uncharacteristically goes for it on a 4th and 1. That's a turnover on downs. He gives Indianapolis 3. I didn't mind that one either.
And I wanted it to work so badly, Logan, for your sake. I just thought, God, I know that Logan probably doesn't want them to take this. I just want him to see the light. And it didn't happen.
Then the last one that really killed us was the fumbled snap, the 12-yard loss on the final drive. And so there's no doubt in my mind that this Steelers defense is better than last year. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the best Steelers offense post Big Ben. Honestly, I think this offense has the potential to be the best Steelers offense since the Killer Bees era. And I don't expect us to put up 30 points like they did, but I think this could be the most volatile and explosive offense since then. The real question is it good enough to win a playoff game? I don't know yet. And a big component of that is how worried I am about the Steelers' offensive line. Rookie right tackle Troy Fontenot is out for the season with an MCL injury. He suffered that in practice. He's on the IR. Will not return this year. Isaac Sumalo is out. Really good guard. He has a pectoral injury. He suffered that in preseason. He should be back any week now, we're hearing, but James Daniels goes out with an ankle injury in this game. And so we're starting rookie Mason McCormick, who got beat off the line of scrimmage a couple times. He had some penalties in this game. We had Spencer Anderson in at guard, and we had Broderick Jones in at right tackle. And God bless the boy. He cannot play right tackle. That is my conclusion. He gave up. I don't know what he was doing. There's a 3rd and 9 in this game very early on. He comes in, or he might have been starting in this game. Either way, Colts edge rusher plants Justin Fields in the pocket, and he gets a roughing the passer penalty. That's not a roughing the passer. Tell Broderick Jones' big ass to D up and block somebody. Like, he gave him a free line to the quarterback. That is I don't know if he wasn't ready for us to snap the football. That's not even like a technique issue. I can't play right tackle. I'm not ready to play ball issue. We drafted him 14th overall in 2023. I really liked what we saw from him at left tackle in his rookie year. Like, if you are out there, Steelers offensive analyst people on the team, put Broderick at left tackle, bench Dan Moore. Let's put in somebody else at right tackle. He just can't play it.
Logan
so
Camden.
To me, this loss is not on the offense. I put this on the Steelers defense. They do give the Steelers a chance to win this game at the end. Ogunjobi and Hayward get pressure. Herbert gets the sack. I'll cut him a little more slack. I thought there was a bad, unnecessary roughness call on Minkah Fitzpatrick in this game, too. It leads to an Indianapolis touchdown. Minkah hits A.D. Mitchell on a go route. A.D. doesn't come up with the ball. It's overthrown by Joe Flacco. And Minkah is letting up his speed to not hit him full force. And I think you see that they still call unnecessary roughness. But coming into this game, the Steelers were the leading 3rd down defense in all of the NFL. Opponents were converting less than 22% of their 3rd downs versus Pittsburgh. In this game, Indianapolis converts over 50%. And specifically, Joe Flacco was 6 of 7 on 3rd down for 6 first downs. They allow a big shot play with Anthony Richardson in the game. Joe Flacco picked apart this defense. And so, yeah, I put this on the Steelers defense, man. They did not really provide any resistance to Indianapolis. They picked apart this weak-ass zone that we were running today. I was impressed, man. This is one of the better offensive games I can remember from the Steelers in the last 3 to 4 years. So I put this on the defense, man. I was really disappointed with them. They did not live up to their branded expectations. I mean, we got beat by Joe Flacco, for Christ's sake, man. Come on.
Winner, though. Known winner. My God, he can get up off his couch and sling the football around the field. I'm with you. I'm ultimately encouraged by this for the Steelers just because, like, yes, this game's on the defense, but I'm not worried about the defense. We know what the defense is. This is the best the offense has looked in quite some time. Now, I want to be clear. You say since the Killer Bees. The gap is the size of the Grand Canyon. You know, it's relative to a very low bar since those teams.
For sure. The lowest bar.
The lowest bar in football, basically. But I'm with you, dude. Fields has been impressive. He did the game manager stuff in the first 3 weeks. This week, you needed him to make some plays. He did it with his legs. He threw some dots downfield to Pickens. The fumble, I'm going to disagree with you. I do think that was a fumble. I don't think, I just rewatched it, that he had solid possession of the ball at any time when he's trying to regather it. It's all pretty loose at that point. But like, even on that play, right, he's dealing with 2 free rushers. Like, yeah, he's got to try to throw it away. That's not like, oh my God, Justin Fields, what an idiot you are. That's a really bad spot to be put in as a quarterback. So yeah, like you said, it's just a couple moments that cost them, a couple self-inflicted errors, but overall it's the best that they've looked on that side of the ball. So I don't know. I still think that fundamentally it's not a good offense, but it's looked more capable than I would have expected. Do you take issue with that? You think it might be a good offense?
I think we're seeing the team break through. I mean, again, you have to contextualize this. This is a brand new quarterback. This is a brand new offensive coordinator, brand new offensive system. And we've had a lot of big plays taken away. I like that Fields can get the ball to Pickens. I like the rapport that they've built. The one thing that I think can take this offense up another notch, play Darnell Washington. He is 6'7", 265 pounds. He's an extra tackle. Like, screw it, man. Let's go 12 personnel,
And he
22
hurdled MF
personnel.
today.
He stiff-armed a guy and then hurdled him. Like, he's slow. Darnell's not going to move very fast, but he's strong. He's athletic as hell. Like, just get him on the field, man. He's going to help us out. And if we're struggling that bad to protect Fields or to get push up front, stick him next to Broderick on the right side and give him a little bit of help over there. The one final thing I want to say on the Steelers offense, I know people have been saying this for 3 years, and I've always gone to bat for them. But it really is frustrating to me how much better other running backs look behind our offensive line that aren't Najee Harris. And, like, Najee does one thing at a really high level, and I think that's protect the football. He, knock on wood, because I don't want to jinx his ass, never fumbles. He is really good carrying. Like, he's reliable. He's a big body. He's hard to bring down, so I like him in the short yardage situations. But he has no burst. Like, Najee might have one of the worst, and I don't know if this is stemming from his ankle injury from his second season when he sustained that, because I thought that was the reason he didn't have burst. His burst should be back by now. He doesn't have any explosiveness when he gets the ball. Like, Cordero Patterson was our best rusher in this game. He leaves with an ankle injury. Jaylen Warren looks so much more. He has so much more pop when he's back there. Like, you know, at first I thought it was just too small of a sample size. The sample size is really large, and we've seen it with different iterations of the offensive coordinator. We've seen it with different iterations of the offensive line. Like, I just wonder if we should, you know, maybe take back a little of his slack on the workload as a running back and give Cordero or Warren a little bit more burn.
Dude, I've been saying Jaylen Warren is clearly better than Najee Harris. Yards per carry in their career. Both of them have only played with the Steelers. Najee's got one more year with the team, but it's multiple years of a sample size now. Jaylen Warren, 5.1 yards per attempt. Najee Harris, 3.9. Massive difference. Elite efficiency versus bad efficiency. They're running beside the same line. They're running behind the same line. Watch them, dude. Warren is way, way more explosive. I don't know. I think that's been clear. I'm with you. When he's healthy and back out there, I'd make him RB1. I don't think it's going to happen, because the Steelers love Najee. They love giving him touches, but I don't think he's good.
I didn't think I was going to need to mention this earlier when we were talking about the Bills-Ravens dynamic, but somebody's talking about how they phased James Cook out of the offense. I was going to mention this. So what happens when you're losing by a lot in football games? You normally have to throw the ball more because you don't want to burn time, off the clock, and you want to move the ball really fast. So I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that's why James Cook didn't get as many touches today. Normally when you're winning in football games, you run the ball more, so the running back is going to get more touches. I was going to mention that earlier, but I didn't think it needed to be said. But I think that's why. Like, I think that, the Bills were down by 3 scores most of this game. They needed to throw themselves back in the game.
Yeah, they did start early sort of supplementing the run game with, like, screens. I mean, it was pretty screen heavy early. So it's true that even early in this game, they weren't giving the ball to James Cook a lot. But like you say, I mean, there's only a brief period of this game when the offense was, like, able to function as it normally does before they were down big. So I'm with you. I think that that's most of the issue there. I will say, Logan, the Steelers had won 7 straight games when they scored 24 plus. So for Steelers football, the offense did their job. It's on the defense by, again, Pittsburgh Steelers standards. All right, let's talk about the Colts side of this game real quick. Anthony Richardson leads the Colts on a touchdown drive, gets them into the red zone on their second drive, then leaves with a hip injury. What did you take away from Indianapolis in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Shane Steichen runs a clever-ass offense, and that's what always scares me when the Steelers play a team that has a good offensive coordinator that can draw up good plays, and they have a good offensive line. Like, that was the thing to me. The offensive line protected the hell out of Joe. We couldn't get pressure the way we normally did. When we did get pressure on Flacco, he crumbled. That's the way to beat Joe Flacco at this stage in his career. And he has a couple of plays, a couple of balls that should have been picked off by Peasy Jr., Richardson threw one that should have got picked off by Peasy. Flacco, those are another ones should have got intercepted by Peasy. But it all comes when we get pressure home. The Colts just block the hell out of our guys. I got to give them an immense amount of credit up front. And then just Shane Steichen. Guys like Shane Steichen scare the shit out of me when the Steelers play them. Like, the Steelers, they have a really talented defense, but it's like not the most convoluted thing to match up against. Shane Steichen runs a lot of pre-snap motion, and what that was doing was it was telling the quarterback at the line of scrimmage, are they in man? Are they in zone? When they're in man, you just look to see who's going to win. And then when they're in zone, that's when I'm really scared for the Steelers, because the pressure doesn't get home. The Steelers run some weak zones that you can pick apart against, man. It's really about the quarterback making good decisions and making throws. Joe Flacco at this stage in his career can still make all the right decisions and can still make all the throws. You got to get pressure home, and that's where I thought Pittsburgh lost this game. Pass rush just wasn't great enough. TJ didn't impose his will on this game. Cam, I didn't think had a great game. I thought Herbert did. I just thought the front did not get enough push that we needed to win this game. And I just got to tip my cap to Shane Steichen, man. The guy's brilliant, and these offenses, man, they can pick apart. Smart offensive guys can pick apart the Steelers defense, and that's been true. Bobby Slowick did it, right? Kyle Shanahan did it last year. Good offensive minds find ways to pick apart the soft areas of the zone, and that's what Indianapolis did today.
Anthony Richardson obviously leaves this game, as I mentioned.
I'm glad.
And I do think
they
that's
might have ran us, man.
Yeah, definitely. The offense was looking very good with him out there. As you mentioned, he hit on a shot play to Pittman, and they were running the ball well. He was running the ball well. They were really moving the ball pretty easily. I think this hip injury is concerning, though, not the injury itself, not in a vacuum. They've already said that it's not a serious thing. I just think this is a concerning trend for him. Anthony Richardson has started 8 games and he's finished 4. I don't understand why they had him run the football on his first play back out there after injuring his hip. I just thought that was stupid. But with his build, you just don't expect him to get banged up like this, right? Who are the similar dudes in terms of frame and athleticism? Josh Allen, who is a superhero in terms of his availability. The guy, he gets banged up. He never, ever misses games. Cam, throughout his prime, was mostly pretty darn healthy. Superman as well, another superhero. He ends up having the shoulder stuff, and that does derail his career, but only after he's given you 6-7 quality seasons where he's very healthy. AR just clearly has to be more careful about avoiding these hits than those guys. You would think he can hold up because he's such a tank, but he hasn't. He's getting banged up over and over again. So I just want to see him be smart there. I want to see him stay healthy. I want to see him with Shane Steichen, because I do think we are really seeing league-wide, man. It is so important where these quarterbacks land. The offensive mind that inherits you is so crucial to your development. And I like Shane Steichen for Anthony Richardson, but he's just got to stay out there, man. The good news is, even if he does get banged up short term for the Colts, I think Flacco can keep this offense functional. They run the ball. He'll make the throws from inside the pocket. Good backup to have. They had a good backup last year, but he's got to stay on the field, man. AR's got to be out there.
I think it starts with him sliding earlier. The one that got him knocked out of this game, he just slides late, and Minka tries to let up, and they don't, he gets helmet to helmet. He's just got to be safer. And somewhere, too, I feel like Anthony Richardson probably feels invincible, too, being as big as he is. I can do this. And where the hip one is a little bit concerning to me. I know he gets concussed out of this game, but that's a bad spot to get hit, man. I just know that hurt. He got hit right on his lower back. So I think I agree with you, too. I think Steichen needs to also, maybe reel in the design runs a little bit. Don't get me wrong. When you're an empty set and you run him up the middle, that play almost works every time.
The draw is automatic.
Dude, you can run it with Josh Allen, with Bo Nix. Yep. If you get a weak-ass box, run it with whoever.
Bo Nix.
Hey, it works.
They did run it successfully with him, but there's a bit of a gap in my confidence between the freak 6'5" mega athletes and Bo Nix.
For sure. Maybe
no hate.
No hate. None at all.
No hate.
Maybe not my best comp. But yeah, I think with his track record, I think Steichen just kind of needs to take inventory and go, okay, we're going to reel in some of the design runs. And just, I'm serious, teaching Anthony Richardson to slide, telling him that defender's coming. It's okay. You are our franchise guy. Don't take the hit, because, and I'm not comparing the two because I think their body types and how they take hits are so different, but take a guy like Tua, they can rack up fast if you're not careful. And you just don't want your guy taking too many hits, too many concussions. I think it needs to be a point of emphasis for the Colts moving forward, just so he's safer.
Just to be clear, though, it was not a concussion for Richardson. It was the hip injury that took him
Oh,
out of this game. He
well,
took the helmet to
okay.
helmet, but he just wasn't feeling right with the hip. He said he didn't feel explosive, and
Facts.
Steichen just said, all right, we're just going to sit you out for this game. Okay, let's talk Saints-Falcons, Logan. This was one of the more exciting games on the slate. Ends up being a barn burner, last-second game-winning field goal by the infallible Younghoe Koo, who carried Atlanta in a very weird football game for them. What did you take away from this one?
Man, you can't give the boy Kirko chains any time on the clock, man.
Real.
I mean, at this point,
Except not really.
no, not at all, dude.
They drew a
Dude,
pass
this
interference and he threw
was
3 incomplete passes.
dude, this was such a weird game. Like, I
Yeah.
just think the Saints beat themselves. They gifted the Falcons 2 scores. Again, as you mentioned, Adebo gets the DPI. They go from the Atlanta 30 to the New Orleans 40. It's like a 30-yard pass play right there. So I think the Saints are going to be lingering around to compete with Atlanta for the division crown. But yeah, they score 0 offensive TDs. Shaheed muffs a punt that's recovered for a TD. Troy Anderson gets a pick 6 off Derek Carr off of a Judon tip at the line of scrimmage. The Saints beat themselves today, man. And Younghoe Koo came through a 58-yarder to win it. Also had a 53-yarder and a 44-yarder. Like, I put him up there with the elite kickers in this league, man. But
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, man. I do kind of feel that way about Atlanta. They've just got a different – Atlanta's got more spunk than they did last year, man. I mean, they were comically limited by their quarterback position. Desmond Ridder, no hate.
No hate.
But you got
But
Desmond Ridder
sucks.
and Taylor Heineke, like, you know.
Hopefully Spawn Hour's not listening.
I hope.
He'd be crying right now.
Plug your
Crying
ears,
into
my
his
friend.
rag.
But they got a little bit more mojo, man. I think Kirk just instills a little bit more confidence in them and me. Like, I don't look at the Falcons as like some upper echelon contender, but I could see them pulling off an upset in the first round of the playoffs or something cheeky like that. Like, Kirk's that good, and I've liked what I've seen as he's slowly getting back up to speed. There's a lot of talent on this offense. I still really like this offensive line. I haven't really been impressed yet, like with an Atlanta victory wire to wire.
No.
But I'm waiting for it all to come together. This was a really weird game, one that I definitely think the Saints should have won. Like, I just thought the Saints played a better football game. But, I mean, they score a TD to take the lead with a minute left, man. They really do just beat themselves in this one. But
yeah,
I do slightly prefer the Falcons, I think.
Interesting.
Just barely to this. It's close. It's very close, but I think I barely prefer the Falcons.
That's interesting. I actually think that I am on the flip side of this. I think that I slightly prefer the Saints as I did coming into this game, although I picked Atlanta to win this game, but talking long-term about this division, they are really close. I just think like this was such a weird win for the Falcons. I mean, they didn't have an offensive touchdown in this game, and they're just going to continue to struggle to explode offensively, in my opinion, right? Because they're so run heavy, because they have a quarterback who's not a creator at this stage. Like every game that we've seen from them, you mentioned not being impressed wire to wire. It's like pretty low scoring, grind it out. They haven't finished drives well. They have really had to rely on Younghoe, who's the man. I would have liked to see them run the ball more in this one, but I just think there's a little bit more explosiveness with the Saints, even though they have some flaws as well.
I mean, Clint Kubiak's a beast. I got to tip my cap to that dude.
Absolutely. And I just think like the Saints committed too many mistakes in a game of this nature, especially. And what I mean by that is the Saints want to run the ball a lot. The Falcons normally want to run the ball a lot. They actually didn't run it a ton in this game, but like you just probably won't have the number of possessions you need to overcome the sort of mistakes that the Saints made in this game, because overall, I mean, they gained more yardage, right? Like they just had more cracks at it because they had to get the ball back after allowing their special teams and defensive touchdowns. But I think that I like New Orleans a little bit more. I think that offense is a little more dynamic. I like their play calling. I think the defense is a little bit more talented too, but it's close between these two teams. Shall we move on to another divisional rivalry game, Logan? Jags, Texans. What did you take away from this one?
I hate Jacksonville so much, bro.
Crazy,
I
man.
hate Jacksonville, dude.
Doug Peterson's seat is hotter than Hades.
You know what, man? I'll get to the Texans side, but I want to start on this.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars continue to be the biggest clown show in football. Jacksonville hasn't, dude. The commentators put the kiss of death on Jacksonville too. Like coming down to it, Jacksonville hasn't won a game with Lawrence in 300 plus days.
Crazy.
Their last win, November 26th, 2023, last season, week 12 versus the Texans. And it just continues to astound me in the way that Jacksonville loses these games against the Dolphins. Utter collapse in the fourth quarter. You control that game for 3 quarters. Etienne fumbles out of the end zone. You fall apart. Against the Browns, your defense plays great. You just can't put together one sustained touchdown drive to win the game. Against the Bills, nobody expected you to win that one, but that's not even competitive. I mean, they get Wally mopped the complete game. It's just so frustrating. And these final drives, the third to last drive, 4th and goal, always, I get it. I'm a 1970s NFL coach. I'm taking the points. 1930s maybe, man. I don't know, man. The Steagles. I'm taking the Steagles, and I'm kicking the ball.
George Dallas out there going head to head.
I'm taking the points in that situation. 4th and goal, up 20-17. I'm going to take the points because why? If the Texans answer and score a TD, then we just have to kick the field goal later in the game. But that's okay. I get it. Not everyone has an old soul like me and wants to kick the ball. So they go for it. That's okay. You got to convert, and you run QB power. I mean, completely stuffed at the line of scrimmage, turnover on downs. Second to last drive, Christian Kirk drops a deep ball from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Last actual drive, they get the ball back with 4 minutes left. Again, your defense has come up huge. It's still 20-17. They can't even sustain a drive and burn clock to win the game. Like Jacksonville deserved to lose this game. They go 4-12 on third down. They get outgained by 122 yards. The coaching sucks. The offensive line sucks. Christian Kirk sucks. I think Trevor Lawrence sucks right now. He's objectively a bottom 10 starter in the league. And that's another frustrating aspect of this team. As I've covered up for T-Law through the first 3 weeks, there comes a point in close football games where great quarterbacks are just going to win you some of them. Right now, Trevor Lawrence ranks 31st in completion percentage, 53.3%. He ranks 25th in passing yards per game, 182.3, and he's tied for 26th with a passer rating of 78.9. I get it. The situation blows. It's one of the worst in the NFL, but he is not doing anything to elevate his situation or his team. And like at the podium, man, it looks like Doug Peterson has been defeated, Carson.
Oh, yes. 9 times in a row, I believe.
All the confidence has been beaten out of him. He's 1 of 9 in his last 10 games coaching. And I do question his leadership, man. Like you cut the head off with a snake and the snake dies. You kill the queen bee, the bees don't know what to do, man. When basically what I'm saying is that when your coach is thrown in the towel, I mean, he looks crushed. When your leader is done, you're done, man. Everybody else is going to fall apart. Like Peterson looks defeated. I'd take his defeated ass. Go to, you know what, man? You're already in Florida. Take your old ass and just go retire, man. You're done. Just go to Orlando, migrate down there, man. Kick your feet up, relax.
Cancun could be nice.
Yeah, watch out for the fire ants and chill. Take a chill pill, Doug. Go get somebody else that can find somebody else to run this ship, man. Like I'm over the Jaguars, man.
I thought that they should have fired Peterson last week. I thought that was an out, man. He just hasn't been good. His situational decision-making has been bad. The play calling has been bad. I think you put that on Press Taylor, but it's also on Doug, right? He's overseeing the whole operation. They've completely collapsed emotionally. They've been one of the most disappointing teams in football over the last 365 days. I just don't know what else it took on top of an absolute ass beating last week. I guess it's blowing another game, right? You're looking at 3 of 4 games that they probably should have won and one in which they were absolutely humiliated. So like in totality, 3 chokes and a blowout, it doesn't really get to be more compelling in terms of, hey, let's look at the coach here. On top of the resume he had already built for himself, I thought he should have been gone after last year. He should be fired. He should be fired tomorrow morning. I don't know if he will, but he should be. Trevor, I don't think has played well this year. I actually thought that he played fine this week. I'm with you. Like, he's clearly not playing at an elite level, even within this game. Over the course of this year, he's been a below average starter, but there were a lot of balls that hit receivers in hands in the home stretch of this game. And there were a lot of receivers who were pretty well covered. And Trevor puts the ball where he needs to. He makes a tight window throw. Like, this game, I wouldn't put on him as much as some of the other ones where, like, against Cleveland, he was wildly inaccurate. Buffalo, nothing was ever going, but he threw a bad pick in that game. I thought he was fine in this one. But CJ Stroud opposite him played a hell of a game, man, and really led a surgical final drive. And I think showed you he is one of those dudes who can overcome, because the run game wasn't super effective in this one. It hasn't been since week 1. The Texans had a number of penalties in this game. CJ's able to pull you through. I will say for Houston, I continue to have some skepticism about them because of some of those issues around CJ in the passing attack, in terms of the offensive line, in terms of the run game. Like, it's impressive they gutted it out. This is still a close one against the Jags team that sucks and is sitting at 0-4. But props to CJ, man. He's one of those dudes. I mean, God knows there's no question who's king of this division, right? The gap is just growing and growing between these two.
No doubt. And I mean, it felt like that the whole way through, that if they left the Texans time on the clock, that CJ was going to get it done. And bip, bip, bip. Texans are in the red zone. Boom, TD. I'll cut them a little slack about that in this game. I mean, Joe Mixon is out. Cam Akers leaves this one. They're literally down to, Ogunbowale. I can't say his last name, man. Ogunbowale or however. I'm
won
close.
The game for him. Dare.
Yeah.
You could just go with Dare. You guys are on a first name basis, I think.
My boy Dare. Yeah, I mean, 9 plays, 69 yards, and a tutty. They had 20 passing first downs. I mean, that's CJ. Right. That's CJ going to work. He's a playmaker. Nico Collins has a monster game in this one. Like, CJ has such great receiving talent here. I just trust him to come through in a different way that I don't with Trevor, man. And I expected this the whole way through, man. I was waiting for it. And also, man, just to real quick back on Jacksonville, like, the game script late, the fact that they're not running the ball either, man. They're not even trying to put it on the ground and run clock. Like, I don't know, man. There's no rhyme or reason with Jacksonville, man. They're clueless.
Brutal. Shout out Tank Bigsby. Speaking of the Jags running game, he's had a couple nice games this year and had a massive run in this one. Almost got in the end zone, but unfortunately he did not. All right, Logan, let's talk about Doug Peterson's former team, the Philadelphia Eagles, who may be looking for a new head coach pretty soon. Nick Sirianni and Philly, they take a rough loss in this one to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What'd you take away from this?
My big takeaway, Philadelphia's defense is still not championship caliber. They got carved up by the Bucs and my darling baby boy, Baker Mayfield. 445 total yards allowed. At the end of the first quarter, the Bucs were up 14-0. They had 186 yards. The Eagles had 0. Tampa Bay had 16 first downs in this game before Philadelphia got 1. I mean, busted coverage all game long. Baker's picking them apart. They averaged 6 yards per play. They had 29 first downs to Philadelphia's 16. They had 6 red zone opportunities and 4 red zone touchdowns. Here are some statistics on the Eagles defense this year. They are the 5th worst team in yards per play allowed. They are the 4th worst team in rushing yards per carry allowed. They are the 13th worst team in passing yards per attempt allowed. And they are 22nd in pressure rate. Couldn't get pressure, couldn't stop the run. They couldn't hold up in the back end. Like, it's just abundantly clear to me that the Eagles are going to have to win football games on the back of their offense. And that's a significant problem when Jalen Hurts is not an offensive elevator. And I sympathize with the Eagles offense a little bit in this game. A.J. Brown's out. Devontae Smith is out. Lane Johnson is out. But Hurts goes for 178 yards and 2 TDs with 2 strip sack fumbles. As I have mentioned a myriad of times during the season, he has the most turnovers since the beginning of the 2023 season with 27. He has 4 more than any other quarterback. And it's tough, man. Like, Cooper DeJean muffs a punt, leads to a Baker Mayfield TD. But it's like also, a Bucs receiver drops a TD in this game. The thing to me, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia needs to rely on Saquon Barkley more early and often. Their slow starts have been well documented. Carson, they're the only team in the NFL up to this point that has yet to score a point in the first quarter. They are scoreless in the first quarter through all 4 games. They had 5 first-half drives versus Tampa Bay. They had 4 3-and-outs. And finally, they had a TD on the final drive. Saquon had 2 carries in the first quarter, and he had 12 touches all game. Like, to me, Saquon Barkley is this team's best player.
Yeah.
I'm feeding him all game long because you have to. Like, especially when you're down Devontae Smith and you're down A.J. Brown. Like, lean on him. And I get it. You had a deficit early. You got to get away from the normal game script. For a lot of teams, I think that matters with your running back. Like, for a guy like James Cook, that makes sense. Josh has other weapons. For the Eagles, screw it. I'll call halfback screen every play. We're putting the ball in Saquon's hands. Yeah, the Eagles have been disappointing all year long. Their defense is by far their biggest issue with how bad they're down offensively, but I continue to be underwhelmed by them offensively too, man. I'm really disappointed by Philly.
I'm with you on the Saquon point. I mean, he's just been phenomenal this year. When you are having to deal with just ridiculously shorthanded personnel, why on your first 3 drives of the game, all of them 3-and-outs, are you throwing the ball on first down every time? Like, why are you doing that? That just doesn't make sense to me. You should be, as much as possible, putting the ball on the ground, trying to control some clock in this game. They just don't do it. So I don't like the coaching. We've been over that time and time again, but I'm really not going to rag on your offense in this game. Like, I'm with you. Hurts isn't an elevator, right? If he were an elite quarterback, he maybe could have made something happen in this game, but working within the framework and understanding that he's not that, what can you expect from a team that's down both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Lane Johnson, as you mentioned? It's your defense, dude. You allow 445 yards. I mean, you gave up all the numbers. They've been bad in 3 of the 4 weeks. And last week was an improvement against the Saints. I thought their defensive line was really good. And for a moment, it was like, hey, maybe they're tapping into something here. But it's been a lot more bad than good this year. It was a hell of a lot more bad than good last year. You're allowing 24 points per game again this year. Like, I just can't take them seriously. When I don't like your coach, when I don't like your defense, and when I have questions about your quarterback, no matter how stacked your talent is overall, I can't view you as an elite football team. The Eagles are still so talented. I think they'll probably be in the playoffs, but the defense, man, just killing me.
Yeah, the Buccaneers can beat bad defenses. Baker Mayfield can go off against a bad defense. He beat up the Commanders.
Them up.
And he beat up the Eagles. I think that speaks a lot about your team. Real quick, as an aside, because I was thinking about this. Would you rather have Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy?
I'm building my offense from scratch. I guess they're both in pretty damn good offenses.
I mean, I'd rather have Brock.
God, that's tough.
Damn.
I think I might be with you, dude.
You might not have to think too hard about these other ones in, because I'm lower. Would you rather have Hurts or would you rather have Goff? I'd rather have
view Goff and Purdy very similarly.
So do I. These are all, because I wrote down my list.
It's just so tough because Hurts is such a superior athlete. The ceiling, the level that he played at in 2022,
right?
I don't think any of those guys are touching, but golly, he has fallen far from there.
Like, would you rather have...
Goff is just steadier. Goff is certainly steadier.
Would you rather have Hurts or Baker? I'd rather have Baker.
I know you would rather have Baker. I'd probably rather have Hurts, but it's tough, dude. I mean, Baker has these performances where he just plays out of his mind. And
dude,
like he does elevate the football team. He's played 2 master classes in 4 weeks this year.
Please don't make this comp out to be more than it is, but like,
here we go.
Literally, when he has games like this, he looks like Drew freaking Brees. Like, I'm astounded.
Big old balls.
Like, he's
Johnny Manziel's attitude.
He's humming balls in there. That's a wild comp.
Crazy.
That's a wild comp.
An insane thing to say on the pod. Not as insane as saying he looks like Drew Brees out there, but I don't know. Same tier. I think I'd go Hurts, but Baker's played better this year. Is there any other names you have on that little list of yours?
I mean, the only other guy I was thinking of, would you rather have Hurts or Darnold?
Oh, I'd rather have Hurts. I need to see more from Darnold. I think they're all in the same tier.
So do I.
Honestly.
They are all right next to one another for me.
Yeah, but dude, I got to give Brock his respect, man.
Brock's at the top of those guys for me. He is. We'll get to that
He's
in a little
impressed me
bit,
this year.
but Brock has impressed me a lot.
He's impressed me this year. He really impressed me last week. He's a creator, dude. He doesn't have the arm, but my God, he has the mentality and he has the mobility, or he makes the most out of his mobility. That's for sure. Yeah, I think that I would rather have Brock, and I think that I would rather have Goff. The ceiling is high with Hurts, but the floor is low, man, and he has been much closer to the floor for more than a year now, unfortunately. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Then we'll sort of motor through the games remaining after some quick words from DraftKings. TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. Whatever you call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL.
On the ground, in the air, from the special teams or the defense, we don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like picking a player to score a touchdown or how many TDs will be in a game. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick.
Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Logan, Jayden Daniels is playing out of his mind. He currently has the record for completion percentage through a month in NFL history. 82% of his passes he has completed, and he leads the Commanders to another win. They've won 75% of their games, which I don't think I expected. I don't think you expected coming into the year. Really just beat down on the Cardinals in this one. What did you take away from this one for Washington?
Yeah, completely unexpected. I mean, Jayden Daniels is Washington's franchise quarterback. Through the first 4 games of this year, 1,115 total yards of offense, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. You mentioned the completion mark. He's just got phenomenal poise for such a young quarterback. He's got the record for a quarterback's first 4 starts through a single season completion percentage. He also holds the completion percentage mark through a quarterback's first 4 starts of his career. He also has the second most rushing yards through a quarterback's first 4 starts of his career. Carson, real quick, care to guess who is number 1?
Mike Vick.
Robert Griffin III.
I was going to say RG3 next. I only get one guess.
Oh, sorry, bro. RG3. RG3 is number 1, only by 16 yards, though. RG3, 234 yards, 218. What I've been so amazed at, first, just how decisive Jayden is. A big problem with a lot of rookie quarterbacks is you'll just see the ball stick on their hands for way too long. You know, in college, you've got time, right? The pass rush you may be playing isn't too good. You can improvise. You can go out and create. Jayden is 3rd in the NFL right now in snap to throw time, 2.2 seconds, which is great. I mean, that's normally a big issue that you have to wire out of quarterbacks. Jayden has that internal clock. I think Cliff Kingsbury has told him, like, we're getting the ball out fast and quick. But it's the play extension and the self-creation, him getting out of the pocket, scrambling on his own, him throwing on the run, how just accurate he has been. And my other big takeaway, I legitimately think the Commanders' offense could be top 10 already with Daniels as a rookie. Coming into this game, 14 straight scoring drives, and they hadn't punted since week 1. They had 9 drives in this game. They scored on 7 of them. On 5 of those scoring drives, they had touchdowns. The other 2, a punt and an interception. They're number 3 in points per game right now with 30.3. Like, it's simple. I trust Jayden Daniels. I think this offensive line is surprisingly good. They are giving Daniels time to throw when he needs. There's so many clean pockets. I like the running game with Robinson Jr. and McNichols. Austin Eckler is not even out there for this game. The receiving core is solid. I think it's underrated. McLaurin, Noah Brown, Diami Brown, and Cliff Kingsbury. Say what you want about him as a head coach. He's a damn good offensive coordinator, man. And I think him and Jayden are a match made in heaven, dude. I think Jayden is a guy that wants to learn, that wants to be great. And I think Cliff is a guy that really helps young quarterbacks along. I don't view the Commanders as a real contender. just because of their defense. I think good offenses are going to carve this secondary up, and I was more surprised that Kyler in this offense didn't. But yeah, I buy the Commanders' offense, like all the stock, and I buy Jayden Daniels as a franchise quarterback. I'm not ready to say, because everybody wants to dump on Caleb right now and take their victory lap on Jayden Daniels. I'm not there.
No.
I think it would take a lot from Jayden, despite
Yeah.
this great start, for me to move off of that. But I do think Jayden's a franchise guy, and he's proven me wrong. Like, I thought Jayden might be too small for the NFL. I thought Jayden might be too inaccurate. I thought Jayden, might be too reliant on his legs. I was wrong. Like, hand up, I was wrong on Jayden. He's a stud.
Yeah. He looks like a superstar. And I had him as QB3 in this class. Boy, he'd be a hell of a QB3. I don't know. We'll see what Drake May looks like. I am with you. I'm not moving off of Caleb. I think that he continues to improve. I think his situation's bad. We'll get to that when we get there, but I still believe a lot in his talent. But Jayden's incredible. I mean, he's on pace to have the greatest rookie quarterback season ever if he keeps this up. And the offense overall is just insane. I mean, the points per drive, dude, just skyrocketing into historic territory. They had 15 straight drives without a punt, a streak that carried over from week 2 well into this game. Just incredible. You got to give props to Kingsbury because he has designed a great offense for him. It's intuitive for Jayden. Lots of screens, lots of quick stuff to the first read, getting him rolling out, using his legs. But when he has to, he's going through his progressions. He's staying composed. He's been exceptionally accurate, and he's aired it out some, dude. I mean, the throw that he made to end the game last week, obviously, is an unbelievable throw to make at this level. So he airmailed one ball today, but that was his first turnover. He's averaging 8.5 yards per attempt. You mentioned what he's doing on the ground. Just an incredible blend of physical tools and efficiency from him. And like you say, right, there are strengths in this offense. The coaching, the run game's been good. McLaurin is good. The depth in this receiving core is solid. Shout out to all those pieces. I certainly did not anticipate this being a great offense, though. And although you might look at it and say, yeah, it's the best situation of all the rookie quarterbacks, that's true. It's still not some overloaded situation. Like, Jayden is making this happen. Jayden is playing at the level where he is elevating this offense. He is the star of the group right now. And I mean, if we were just going to say who's the MVP of the league right now, dude, through 4 weeks, it's probably Jayden Daniels. He's leading the best offense in football. He's off the charts in terms of efficiency. He's warping defenses with both his arm and his legs. Josh would have been the front runner coming in today. He's still in those conversations because he played so ridiculously well in the first 3 weeks and didn't even play very badly today. Again, it was really more on the defense. And by the way, I'm seeing a lot of people, Logan, trying to count out the Bills. Let me tell you something. You could blink week 11 and the Bills are 9-1. I think they're going to run off a lot of wins in a row. Texans this coming week is the toughest game they have for a bit. I think they win that. I still believe deeply in the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen's playing like the best quarterback on the planet. But right there with him, just in this season, Jayden Daniels has been out of his mind. I'd take him over Darnold for MVP. I just think the way that he stresses defenses is more pronounced because of the rushing ability. His job is harder. He's doing this with a supporting cast that isn't as strong. And he's let out an even more dominant offense. It's just incredible what he's doing. And the rumblings are starting about Washington for the division. I need to see more out of the defense. Same goes for Dallas and Philly, by the way, but those defenses are just way more talented. Washington's really gotten shredded on defense each week until now. And although they had a lot of turnover in terms of personnel, I still think this is a bad defense. That to me is what puts a ceiling on this team. But the offense is awesome. You have a quarterback who doesn't just look like a franchise guy, looks like an elite dude at the position. That's what matters for Washington.
Yeah, it's all that matters. And the Commanders look really well prepared coming into every single game. Like, they don't seem like they seem ready to go. The Eagles haven't, and that's something. I don't know if it's like a arrogance thing. I don't know, with Dallas or Philadelphia. I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's we're just better. They don't seem as ready, but I'm with you. I need to see a little bit more. But you think about another reason why the Commanders' defenses can sustain or be, average. The offense is on the field for so much of the game. They're resting up. They don't have to play as much. Like, Jayden Daniels is out there cooking half the game. I think he's on that short list, though. I'd probably have Darnold as my MVP right now just because the Vikings are undefeated. I mean, your case is really good, but Vikes are undefeated. He's got the most passing TDs in the NFL. But I don't know. But that being said, I mean, Jayden has been the engine. He's been the guy getting them down the field. Like, Brian Robinson's been the guy punching it in or whoever, but he's been the guy moving them. I think those are the three guys right now. I think it's Jayden, I think it's Darnold, and I think it's Allen. But I'd probably go Darnold just because they're undefeated and they've got he's got the most TDs in the league right now. But it's close. It's very close. And again, it's a freaking rookie. I mean, I'm trying to rack my brain. I can't remember a rookie quarterback having this kind. I mean, maybe Dak, but even Dak, I mean, he's handing the ball off and letting the defense win games. Like, this is Jayden single-handedly carrying not single-handedly, but he's carrying and responsible for his side of the football, and they're winning on that end. It's got some to do with the team for sure, but way less than those other guys. This may be the best start I can remember from a rookie quarterback, man.
I think it is. And listen, this is not to disrespect the great CJ Stroud, who we saw last year have, in my opinion, the best rookie quarterback season ever. But in terms of just coming out the gates hot, I mean, bro, he had a historic performance last week, and he was damn good again this week, and he was damn good in week 2. Like, he's running circles around the other rookie quarterbacks in terms of performance right now. But let's talk about one of those other rookies, Logan. Caleb Williams and the Bears get a win today over the Rams. They improved to 2-2. What'd you take away from this one?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Bears just made life easier on him, and this says a lot to me about LA's defense. They've allowed the 5th most yards per carry throughout the season, just under 5 yards per carry. And it was just easier for him. You didn't have to rely on Caleb so heavily. I did a breakdown on Caleb in his game last week. He threw 53 passes. I mean, anytime you're asking a rookie quarterback or 52, excuse me, it ended up being 52. But anytime you're asking a rookie quarterback to throw the ball for you that much, it's probably not great. And I just think they relied really heavily on him through the early part of this season. And as I mentioned in that video, the Bears are going to be in a lot of really close one-score games against like average to good teams. I think the great teams will beat down Chicago, but the average to good teams and the bad teams, Chicago is going to be in there because of this defense. This defense is legit. And so on the inverse of that, when you can run the ball like they did today with Swift, with Roschon Johnson, you're probably going to win. Caleb didn't have to do a whole lot. And I know this stat line isn't impressive. I'm still so impressed with Caleb Williams. And I know people, just because I know how the NFL fans think, if you don't put up 300 plus yards, if you don't put up 3 TDs, who cares? It's a snooze fest. You suck, Caleb shows me flashes every single week like he does. And I know people are probably tired of hearing this because all the hype during the offseason and all the hype and he's the next Mahomes, this and that. Every week he shows you these one-of-one freakish things that only the best quarterbacks in the NFL can do. The off-platform throws, the rolling out of the pocket when the play is dead, the play extension, the self-creation with his legs. Caleb has one-of-one traits. He is a freak arm talent, and he misses DJ Moore on a throw at the end of the first half. Chicago ends up getting a field goal. Like, Caleb's not perfect, and he's not going to be perfect. For a couple of years, it's going to take him time. But people say Patrick Mahomes, my comp is for him, Carson. And he probably won't be this efficient because this is the efficiency guy. I think the comp is Aaron Rodgers. When I watch Caleb play, I think he's more similar to Rodgers with the velocity on his ball, with the arm angles he can throw at, with the off-platform stuff, with the throw, with him, the ability to throw on the run. That's who I see. Mahomes is a one-on-one guy, so I think it's hard drawing up a comp. But when I look at Caleb, I see Aaron Rodgers. And again, I don't know if it's going to come to fruition in year one. The offensive line sucks. I don't think he has nearly as good of an offensive coordinator as Jayden does. And I'm not making excuses for him. This is just the reality of the situation. He's also down some receiving talent right now. Keenan Allen isn't out there. This is still
he's out there in this one.
He was. It's still not like the most talented offense, but he's got pieces. I think the situation is better for other rookie quarterbacks. That being said, though, I know the stat line isn't crazy. Caleb shows you some freak stuff week in, week out, and he's very fun to watch, man. So He's still my QB1. I still think the Bears made the right decision in taking Caleb. I still think Caleb's going to be one of the best QBs in the NFL. This probably isn't the game to tell you all this, but I like the fact that Chicago is going to be competitive week to week. And if Caleb can perform up to expectations, this is going to be a good team year one.
I'm with you on a vast majority of what you just said. I think Caleb's going to be great. I think that he is improving week to week. I thought last week he played pretty well. I thought the second half he led some really nice drives. I thought week 2 he played a really good first half, then a bad second. Like, I just think expectations are very high. A lot of people are preying on his downfall, and a lot of people aren't watching closely and seeing how difficult things really are in this circumstance. But I thought that this was an easier week. He stayed in the pocket more. The Bears kept him cleaner. The one thing that I really want to see from Caleb is just the accuracy on deep balls, the accuracy when he's throwing 20 plus yards downfield. That's the thing with the Rodgers comp. Rodgers is on the short list for most accurate quarterback we've ever seen. Caleb's accuracy on some of those big shot play opportunities has been frustrating. So I want to see him improve there, but it's nice to see him take the easy stuff, because I feel like that's just sort of the default thing people say about Caleb. It's, oh, he's playing like he's the best athlete on the field no matter what. It's like, week 1, maybe. Week 2, first half, no. Week 3, no. I mean, he really found a synergy with Kmet in that game. This week, no. A lot of it is getting the ball to DeAndre Swift. Like, he's figuring it out. He's figuring out his responsibilities. And again, he finds Kmet some. And it's a clean game. No picks. So we'll see if he can hit on something explosive soon. I think that moment is coming. He had a beautiful touchdown throw to DJ Moore where he hung in that pocket. That's kind of the theme of the week for me with Caleb, hanging in that pocket, and really put a beautiful ball on the money. So shout out to him. Shout out to DeAndre Swift. I thought he was huge both on the ground and in the air. And for the Rams, I think we can keep this pretty quick. I did not like their play calling on the final drive. I thought it was very strange that they ran the football on the first 2 downs, and then it was just a little screen pass to Kyren Williams, or I should say the second to last, because then they got the ball back one more time and Stafford threw an insta pick. But at that point, you know, you're no timeouts. Like, it's in a really difficult situation. You got Matt Stafford, man. Act like it. I would have put the ball in his hands sooner, and the defense looked not so good for the Rams. I think the fact that Chicago ran the ball so well says more about the Rams than it does about Chicago, which has been basically the worst run game in football. They averaged almost 5 yards per attempt, 130 yards on the ground. That's a Rams thing to me.
100%. I still think Matthew Stafford's one of the best QBs in all of football. And I think he reinforces it weekly. They run the ball well in this game, so they don't have to rely on Stafford as much too. But doesn't matter the wideouts, the offensive lineman, man. Stafford's going to make plays and keep games close. I love Stafford, dude. He's top 5 for me right now. And, like, I know that they're not winning games. And I think I probably sold the Rams too high. Again, I was expecting Kupp and Nakua to be healthy, and I was expecting this offensive line to be healthy, but I don't think they'd be – I don't know if they're winning these games even with those guys healthy because of how bad the defense is. This is not a competitive defense. I mean, like you said, dude, you let the Bears run on you. It's like as bad as it gets.
Yeah. Don't want to glaze Stafford right now because he did end this game with an interception, but goddamn, he's good. He's very, very good. And he keeps the Rams in football games that, you know, with all the dudes who are out, maybe they shouldn't be in, but also because they are missing that talent, like, this isn't going to be their year. All right, Logan, let's talk Broncos Jets here. My goodness, this was a horrifying football game. It ends on a missed field goal for Denver, giving New York a chance in a short field for them to then miss a field goal as well. What did you take away from this one?
My biggest takeaway is the Broncos defense is way better than I thought. Right now, they're number 3 in points per game allowed with 13.8. They held Pittsburgh to 13, Tampa Bay to 7, and the Jets to 9 on this game. They are number 6 in passing yards per attempt allowed. Big shout out to the secondary. Pat Surtain II, I think, is the best corner in football. Riley Moss looks good. PJ Locke made plays. They're number 3 in pressure rate right now. They're the number 8 third down defense, and they're the number 11 red zone defense. Twice they hold New York 2 field goals and 2 red zone attempts. My other takeaway, the Jets' offensive vision I had in mind is just never going to materialize, Carson. And I was really optimistic through the first 3 weeks. And again, I think the Jets are going to look better against worse defenses, but this is when you really can gauge an offensive unit, when they're matched up against somebody really good on that side of the ball. The Broncos, I think, are an upper echelon defense. I think I underrated them. And the Jets offense just isn't going to be that good against great competition. They couldn't do it against San Francisco. They don't do it here. And I think the offensive line is just too bad, specifically the left side. Tyron Smith is washed. John Simpson sucks. Joe Tippmann is not good. The blitz ate New York alive all game. Big credit to Vance Joseph for dialing it up. Rodgers gets sacked 5 times. He's running for his life. The Jets average 2.8 yards per carry. Breece Hall has 10 carries for 4 yards in this game. They go 4 of 17 on third down. And with that, they sustained 13 penalties for 90 yards. And one of my big takeaways was that they needed to rely on Rodgers even more. I think at this point, you're asking Rodgers to do too much. I mean, he wasn't good in this game, but he was heavily disrupted by the Denver pressure. And my take is this team is going to have to win defensive football games. They should have won this one. I mean, you hold the team to 10 points, you're expecting to win that game every single time. As you mentioned, Zuerlein and Lutz both missed 50-yard field goals on the final drive. So I put this all on the offense. You just got to produce more. And I think some of this is the chemistry with the wide receivers, and I think Rodgers is going to figure out the chemistry aspect with the wideouts. The one thing this offense is not going to figure out is the offensive line. They're not going to get better, and that, to me, is going to be the pitfall of this team as a real contender. Like, I'm moving the Jets down in my power rankings. When we get to it, I had them at 6, much too high. They're going to move down, maybe move off my list by the time we do power rankings again after week 5. I got too high on the Jets, and it's not a Rodgers thing, because I think some people who hate Aaron Rodgers are going to go, Aaron Rodgers is a bum. He can't do it. I mean, damn, man, the guy's 40. Like, there's only so much ayahuasca he can drink and perks he can pop before the game to get him all fired up.
Amen.
The offensive line sucks, and that's going to be the reason that this offense doesn't figure it out. And I think the defense is going to keep them competitive, but some games are not going to be able to run the ball. In some games, Rodgers is not going to have time to throw in the pocket, and that's just going to kill you. And so, I'm disappointed by the Jets, man. I thought this team could be a real contender, and they've kind of fallen out, man. I thought they were closer to the Bills and the Ravens and the Chiefs of the world, and they're just not.
They got to get Rodgers a weekly exclusive Joe Rogan podcast where Joe Rogan's just whispering sweet nothings into his little ears, and he listens to them every night before he goes to bed, and that gets him locked the F in. And they got to give him fuel for conspiracy theories, man. Here's what I think. I think that within the locker room, like, they need to just start making little items of his disappear, or maybe they leave like a little trail, like there's a message that's in hieroglyphics and he has to decode it, like something to really keep him engaged mentally and, keep him involved with his passions. And then he shows up on Sunday and he just plays the game that he loves. I don't know. They got to switch things up, I think. It's not really on Rodgers, though. Like you say, my biggest concern is just, can they run the football? Because Aaron Rodgers had their only 10-yard rush of the day, dude. And in an ugly game like this, where it's raining like crazy, a sloppy football game, like, that's how you want to be able to win. It's the most reliable path offensively. Run the damn football. I like Braylon Allen. I like Breece Hall. They have good running backs, but the interior of this offensive line sucks. I overestimated this offensive line as a part of their formula. I'm with you there. And then, as you say, Rodgers is under a ton of pressure. He had to scramble multiple times. What's crazy is he took the 5 sacks, and his time to throw was the 6th fastest in football this week. Denver's blitzing, and they just can't buy him any time. Garrett Wilson fumbles in Jets territory on the opening series. I think he has to play more like a legitimate superstar. His production hasn't been insane. I think a lot of that is the coverage that he's dealing with, and that the Jets offense hasn't been explosive overall, but he can't cost you like he did with that one. This is just a game they have to win, and their offense didn't look serious at all. That's the concern. That's going to determine their ceiling. And even when this offense looks good, they just don't have the potential to explode. It's kind of like what we're talking about with the Falcons, where you're reliant on the run game, and you just don't have that dynamic passing attack. That's what we saw against The Titans, that's what we saw against the Pats. Like, you think, hey, they played pretty well offensively. They put up 24 points. You know, they're not just going to blow you away in any given game with their offense. And I'm with you. That offensive line isn't improving. So I do think they have a pretty clear ceiling right now. I think that they could definitely still be a playoff team, but they're not the sort of fringe contender that I thought they could be preseason. I think that that's clear just with the offensive limitations. But I like Rodgers. I just still think Rodgers is playing well. I think the defense is great. It's the offensive line and it's the run game.
Yeah. The Jets are closer to the Chargers for me. And
I think that's accurate.
I'm debating whether the Chargers should be in my, in that top 10 or where they should be. Like, I think they're in that. I think the Texans are above them. I was smoking on that Rodgers pack, man. I was all juiced up.
I know. And I don't want to write the Jets off as, again, a playoff team. I think they can do that.
Definitely.
Don't think they're winning a playoff game.
I don't think so.
They have the punch. Bo Nix Logan was making some history in this game. There was a point deep into this game where he was 7 of 15 with -7 yards. Props to him. He made a couple nice throws to Cortland Sutton. They had a touchdown drive. That's all you needed in this game. Last week, he played a good football game, but 3 out of 4 weeks, he's just been awful. And he handcuffs your offense. When he threw beyond the line of scrimmage today, Logan, he was 4 of 17. So I'm with you. The Broncos defense has been better than I expected. It has been impressive. But, like, if I'm a Denver fan, I still don't leave this game feeling good because, like, what's priority number 1 this year? See what we have in the quarterback who we drafted 12th overall. He looks bad, and he's old, and he doesn't have the physical upside. I'm worried about Bo Nix, man.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I thought this game specifically, he just never looked settled. Like, the last week against Tampa Bay, he was composed in the pocket. He was decisive, getting the ball out fast. This game, he was sped up. He was rattled. He was trying to make these throws on the run. It's like, I don't think that's Bo Nix's game. I think Bo Nix's ideal game should look more like Jayden Daniels. And what I just mean by that is
4.3 speed, making everybody miss in space.
What I'm saying is
throwing dots 50 yards downfield. Yes.
Bo Nix would be a good quarterback if he was better. No, what I mean by that is if Bo was getting the ball out quick. But I think, I'm telling you, man, I think that pass rush shook him. It kind of reminded me of like seeing Sam Darnold as a rookie. Like, that you're going to get that rookie QB sometime. He looked shook up, uncomfortable. And I don't want to praise him too much because he won a game throwing 60 yards. But in the second half, he did make some throws, stepping up into the pocket downfield with Sutton, which, well, yeah, literally a couple of throws. Literally a couple of throws.
Literally a couple. Drew, you were accurate.
But not all is lost. I think. And this offensive line isn't that good. It's not a great situation.
No, it's not a good situation. It's not a good, but -7 yards.
But, I mean, he was inaccurate, off target. Bro, I mean, the other crazy stat about this game was every other pass that didn't go to Sutton, he had, I think, 7 completions for 0 yards, which is, truly historic stuff. And normally when you see a quarterback with a stat line this bad, 12 of 25 for 60 yards, I believe it was, normally there's like some heinous like field conditions. Like, I guess it was raining heavily.
It was pretty bad.
But normally it's like you're in 30-mile-per-hour winds or something, or it's I'm not fully out. I think Bo can climb to being an average to a below average starter, but he hasn't looked as nearly as composed as I would hope from a guy with the most college starts in NCAA history.
But he got his first passing touchdown this week, Logan. Let's not undersell that stat line. 12 for 25 for 60 yards and a tutty, my friend. All right, let's really speed through these last 3 games. Panthers, Bengals, Logan. Cincinnati wins 34-24. Give me a couple sentences. What did you take away?
Andy Dalton, revenge game. It was never about the offense with Cincinnati, man. Burrow this season's been excellent. Jamar Chase has been excellent. They connect on a 62-yard play here. Shout out Jamar. That was one of the most ridiculous touchdowns I've seen. He broke like 3 or 4 tackles on that crossing route. Also. Yeah. If you haven't seen that, please do. That was a
look up Jamar Chase oiled up twerking.
That'll get you right where you need to go. But I've been impressed with how the Bengals have been able to run the ball the last few weeks. Chase Brown, 80 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 2 TDs in this game. Bengals had 124 yards with 6.2 yards per carry last week. It adds a dynamic that I think this Bengals offense needs. That being said, this is against the Panthers. This is against the Commanders. I really worry about them running the ball against good football teams. That being said, Chase Brown is clearly better than Zach Moss to me. Like, just Zach Moss isn't that good. Like, play Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown is way better.
Mm-hmm.
I am still concerned about how good the Cincinnati defense can be. Right now, they're tied 6th in most rushing yards allowed per game at about 146 per game. And this one, they allow 155. Carolina has 5.3 yards per carry. I understand B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins are out in this game, but you lost DJ Reader. Like, your top-end talent is gone, as is your depth. Credit to them for a goal line stand, and credit to them for the secondary looking better. They hold Dalton to, a pick and 5.5 yards per attempt. But, I'm still worried about this team. Like, they don't get pressure home on Dalton a whole lot in this one. They let them run all over them. This is not a Panthers offense that has been good. Yeah, they exploded last week, but this is not a good team. So we didn't learn anything new about the Bengals is what I'm getting at. My red flags that I had about the Bengals are still my red flags. They beat a bad team today. Good.
Yeah.
You took care of business. But Burrow and Chase in this offense getting going are not my fundamental concern. My fundamental concern is this defense, and I'm still very much worried about them.
I'm with you. The Panthers defense is awful also. So even though the offense looked good, like, this is the easiest defense you could go up against maybe in football. Carolina's offense, it's functional with Dalton out there. I do think Deontay Johnson looks good. I thought Leggett had a really nice game. Like, those are the positive takeaways for Carolina. Looking at this group post Bryce and saying, well, actually, our receivers are playing fine. Actually, we have athletes. We have talented dudes there. But there's really nothing to take away from this game for Cincinnati. Thank God that they took care of business and they won one of these. But, yeah, still no pass rush. You got ran all over by a team that struggled to run the ball. I'm not encouraged for Cincinnati by this win. Niners, Pats, Logan. Complete mismatch on paper and in reality. Dominant win for San Francisco. What'd you take away here?
This probably isn't the game to make this spiel either, but Brock Purdy is approaching my top 10 QBs list, man. Like, I have been really impressed with Purdy's extension and creation early in this game. I mean, he looked like Fran Tarkenton back there, dude. I think I've underrated Purdy, and he's creeping. He's creeping right now. I've got...
He's creeping.
I'm debating. Am I tripping? I was debating him.
Tell me. Say it, brother. This is a safe space.
I was debating him or Rodgers. I'm not going to lie.
I would still take Rodgers right now.
I would too, but
before I move Brock above Rodgers, I would want to see a few more weeks of Rodgers and see if there's more signs of regression, because I don't know. I thought he was pretty insane against the Pats, and I think that arm is still nails, and that accuracy and anticipation and brain. And he can move around a little bit, but he's a surgeon, man. I just trust him so much.
Yeah, and I know that Purdy ends this game. He has 2 fumbles. He's got a bad pick in the red zone, but I've got Brock. We talked a little bit about this earlier. I've got Brock over Baker. I've got him over Goff. I got him over Darnold. Like, Brock's 12
over Baker is huge. For Logan Camden. No, he's not 12, Logan. I want to say he's like 25 or 26.
Brock is 12 in my QB list.
Who's going to stop me? Officer, take me away. I'm too much.
Rodgers is 11. And then the other thing, you said it at the top. I mean, this is a mismatch, but the San Francisco defense looked closer to the team I expected. Again, this is against a lifeless Patriots offense, but they forced 3 turnovers. They sacked Brissett 6 times. They hold them to 5 of 16 on third down. They allow 3.5 yards per play. Like, this is the San Francisco defense I was expecting. And they at least deliver here against New England. They don't let up some, crazy stat line. In my final piece on this game, Drake May, question mark. Like, the clock has to be ticking, right, Carson?
Yes. Oh, the clock is ticking. I mean, the Patriots are currently unwatchable. I think the problem is just, what are you going to do? You're going to put him out there with this line and with the worst receiving core in football. That's not going to be good for him. And I don't know that there's a ton of upside in rushing him into this situation, but here we knew that this was going to come. The thumps from the crowd in the Coliseum. They want to see Drake, and I don't blame him. I want to see Drake. but I would still give him a little bit more time, probably. We'll see him this season, but rushing him into this situation, it's not going to be good for him. It's not going to be easy for him. But yeah, the Niners, I thought, looked good up front defensively. Good to see they have all their weapons back. Jordan Mason just continues to ball out and produce within this offense. I still think the Niners are the best team in the NFC. I would not at all overreact to them losing to a damn good Minnesota team and then losing to the Rams in a really weird way. When, to be fair, the Rams were also super injured, but the Niners were super injured. I just think they're running back basically everything from last year, and they're loaded. So I believe in them. All right, Browns Raiders, Logan, mid-off of the day, maybe. What do you have to say?
Shit off.
Yeah, maybe mid-off is generous.
I still don't believe in the Browns offense. Watson is 27th in passing yards per game among starters. He has the third fewest passing yards per attempt among not even starters anymore. That's including Bryce Young and Bo Nix. Like, let that, I'm going to re-say that one to let that one sink in a little bit. The third fewest passing yards per attempt with 4.9. The only guys he's ahead of is Bryce Young and Bo Nix. Like, he's a bottom 5 starter in the NFL. The Browns offense puts up 10 points in this game. The other 6 come from Rodney McLeod on a fumble return TD. And I thought that the Browns could be close to being a playoff team at the start of this year. And we've updated our expectations as the season's gone along. But they've been underwhelming in other areas offensively. They have an average rushing attack. I thought this was going to be an elite rushing attack, even without Nick Chubb. The offensive line has regressed, right? Like, I will say, I thought the Browns offense played a little better than the numbers will suggest. Watson did have that shot play to Amari Cooper. That was a bad call. That holding penalty was bogus. I thought that was a bad call. Watson also throws a pick off Amari Cooper's hands. He's got to catch that one. I don't know what the hell is going on there. And the Browns also miss an extra point that ends up coming back to bite them. We were talking about kickers, and they end up having to go for a touchdown at the end of this game instead of being able to kick a field goal and send it into overtime. But
yeah,
Browns offense has to do more. Deshaun Watson continues to suck and be one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. The defense can be great. I think the defense is great, but the offensive line isn't as good as I think they're going to be. The running game has been mediocre at best, and they're just handcuffed to this albatross of a contract and this horrible human being. Browns are still screwed, and I don't know if we learned anything about the Raiders.
No. I've given up on the Browns. I thought they could win 10 games before the year. I thought their defense would be that great, and the offensive pieces around Deshaun could carry them to competence. It is worth noting that Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin are both out. Like, their offensive line has been down a couple of its best players. And so I think that's just made life even harder because Deshaun can run around like a wild man back there. They had some opportunities in this game. Amari Cooper drops a ball that becomes a pick. You mentioned the touchdown that's called back. There's one play where Amari is wide open downfield, but it's a very quick pressure, and Deshaun misses the throw by about 15 yards. But yeah, there's really not much to take away. These are two teams that have very bad quarterbacks, that have good defenses, that have solid skill position talent, but it's not enough to carry them to being in the playoff picture, in my opinion. There you have it, folks. We did it again. We talked about every game. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys enjoyed the football today. If you did, the good news is we're talking about it all the damn time, this NFL. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. And if you want more of our content, we're live every Sunday night and after select primetime games. You can also listen to the show across all audio platforms and on our YouTube channel. As Logan mentioned, you can find some of the film breakdowns he's done on rookie quarterbacks, some video essays on NBA players, historical NBA topics. All of that is on our YouTube channel, and our season preview content for the NBA is getting revved up. So you can find all that. You can follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and all of our trivia content. You can also join our Discord. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.